Hello and welcome here to Master Race Cars E-Challenge, brought to you today by Sim Broadcast. I'm Thilo Falkenberg and I'm joined here in the booth by Pete Butcher. Hello Pete.
Hi Thilo, good evening.
So the Master Race Cars E-Challenge is a sim racing event in Live for Speed, as you see, and it was inspired by the FIA Formula E World Championship, especially the E-Prix in New York City. The race is organized by Master Race Car and sanctioned by New Dimension Racing. Your race director today is Jonathan Palmer. He is aided by the safety car Tim De Knodder. Rescue cars are Chris McElroy and Jaroslav Donalik. Head steward is Jonathan Provost. Stewards are Jaroslav Donalik, Darius Gas and Nico Bilicic. So we're here in Live for Speed, and as you see, we are on a very interesting track. This is actually an autocross layout that is pretty much a one-to-one copy of the New York E-Prix circuit, 2.4 kilometer long track in Brooklyn, New York. In 2017, 18 and 19, the New York E-Prix round was held there as season finale, or the round before the season finale. And today is going to be a very interesting race, because we are trying to replicate a little bit of the Formula E magic into Live for Speed. This is not entirely possible by its own, as we may take a look at the car we are using today. This is the Formula XR, a mid-engined rear-wheel drive car with a 2.0 liter inline-4 engine, so not quite an electric car, but power output of about 140 kilowatts and a total mass of about 500 kilograms means that the power to weight ratio is actually a little bit higher than the one of the current Gen 2 Formula E car. So if we look at who is competing today, it's not a large number of entries for this race, but we do see a couple of known drivers like Nico Pontola, the genuine racing driver in the number 6 car, Ronald Nemeth for Master Race Car, and his teammates Erman Asha and Emre Khan Siviri. Also Mantas Bajoras, Gabor Gier for Team Sidus, Jeff and Jacob, one of 2 Race Green Autosports entries, Carolis Montegiu for Last Lap Motorsports, our dear Daniel Baller for Race Green, Simas Tatkevicius for Global Gaming Racing, Danilo Ferraria from Brazil for Road Appraiser Racing, Jamie Tressiter is signed up for this event for Piran Moto. Gregory Jabansi from Hungary is also signed up, as well as Paul Bishop, another Master Race Car entry. Sean Lee for Aerotech Newsroom, Jimmy Vertanen for Master Race Car, and Daniel Revega from Canada for Tortoise and Hare Racing. When we take a look at the track right now, qualifying is running. So the qualifying format of today is a hot lap session. All racers are called out one by one onto the track and are getting one clean lap to set a lap time. Sean Lee is currently on the provisional pole position with a 1 minute 11.27, And then we see a little spread of times, partly due to the very unfamiliar track, but also partly simply due to the fact it's a hot lap session, so any mistake on the very lap you are taking is costing you quite a lot, especially on such a tight and twisty layout we are seeing here.
Yeah, so we get to see a car actually leave the pit lane now, Thilo. We're looking at Jabazi, number 75, as he makes his way down the back straight. We will show a track presentation made by Master Race Car at the end of the qualifying session. But yeah, we have a few cars left to set lap times. And then there will be the most exciting part of qualifying, Thilo, which will be a 6-car Super Pole shootout, which I'm looking forward to quite a lot. It's quite a unique feature of this event.
Yeah, the 6-car shootout. We will know who's going to be part of that after everyone has taken the lap. Jabazi now in the final sector, the penultimate right-hand corner, into the very narrow but fast-ish chicane and onto the long left-hander, onto start-finish.
I think I prefer the sound of the FOX to the sound of the Formula E cars, Thilo. I think it's because it has an engine.
Yes, it has an engine that's indeed having, at least for the sound enthusiasts, some advantage.
Into the wall for Jabazi there.
So exiting turn 5 and now into sector 2. To give you an idea, the split time is at 27 seconds up to this point. And the cornering speeds are quite low, so you see the cars dropping down to under 40 kilometers per hour. That means that there is pretty much no support by the wings on the car for cornering the corners.
Yeah, and also this surface is very slippery.
Second split of 56.11. Coming down into the final corner. Turn 14. And a 1 minute 15.55, currently putting him into 8th position. So Carlos is currently the next car on the lap. The Last Lap Motorsports driver in a very interesting car design, I must say. Checkered flags and a little bit of red onto the car. Very unusual to see a Last Lap Motorsport car looking that way.
Yeah, apologies for the graphics there. That is not Jonathan Palmer driving that car. But anyway, as he comes down to the hairpin, this is a super tricky braking zone. This is going to be tricky on the first lap when you've got a ton of cars behind you.
Yeah, especially on the first laps, I guess we really need to see patient drivers. I mean, unlike a Formula E race, the race is going to be rather long. A Formula E race currently 45 minutes plus 1 lap. Today we see a 100 lap race, and thereby probably just under 2 hours of racing action.
Yeah, I wonder who's going to be next out on track.
There are still 13 minutes in the session. But it looks like all cars, all competitors who have appeared right in time for the qualifying session set their time. So for now, Sean Lee is on pole position in front of Jimmy Virtanen. Then it's Azar, his teammate from Master Race Car. Carolis put a lap together that promoted him into 4th position. Gabagir in 5th. Nico Pontola in 6th position. So probably these 6 drivers are going to be the ones in the Super Bowl. Daniel Mandula in 7th position, so he has got quite a break until the start of the race. So do Emre Khan, Jabazi, Bayoras, Revega, Nemeth, Tadkevicius, and Jeffin.
Yeah, I wonder if we're going to get any more cars out on the track with 12 minutes remaining, but we'll just wait to hear if there's anyone else left to set their lap, and maybe we will skip forward in proceedings. We're just waiting to hear. But yeah, it was a 30-minute session with one-shot qualifying. While we're waiting here, Thilo, we should show the viewers the track guide that has been provided to us by Master Race Car. We can talk the viewers over this one. So here it is then, the New York E-Prix track, over 2 kilometers in length. Very, very, very nicely made by Michael. I think you've got a stat on when it was made by Michael, actually, Thilo.
Yeah, so he released the track in 2019 in April, and then updated the track later in the year after some minor changes were made to the 2019 edition of the real New York E-Prix.
Yeah, so as well as lining up all the corners with the real track, as you can see there, Sim Broadcasts have been busy making sure that we got as many of the real-life cameras as close to reality as possible. So on quite a few of the corners, you'll see cameras in the locations that they actually appear in the Formula E broadcasts. But yeah, as you can see here, another corner perfectly matching up with the real-life track. And yeah, this lap driven by Michael, probably expecting some of the drivers to be setting the fastest lap we've ever seen around the New York E-Prix track today, as they head down to the hairpin. Again, pretty spot on. Rounding out the lap. I think this is my favourite section of the track, especially through what is the DHL chicane in the real one. There you go. It's really nice to see how this is all matched up. And then around the final corner and up to the start-finish line. And that is a lap of Michael's and Master Race Car's New York E-Prix layout. Really nicely done.
Indeed. You were saying that you think that this was the fastest lap ever done on this very track?
I mean, this layout for sure. I'm not sure about what the actual times are. I know you've got some stats for us, Thilo.
Yeah, indeed. So the pole by Alex Sims on July 2019 was a 1 minute 9.617. But in the qualifying session, the Formula E cars have 50 kilowatts of extra power. Unlike these cars we are seeing here, they simply have the same power stats as we saw on the graphic. The fastest race lap, however, by Daniel Abt in the Audi entry was a 1:11.305. So Sean Lee's pole position time is 0.03 of a second faster than the fastest race lap done here on the
300
Street circuit. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's such a tiny margin. But yeah, I mean, it puts it into perspective how close the actual lap time is to reality. So yeah, it's not only is it a 1-to-1 replica, it's also decent on lap time. So the car balancing is pretty good as well. 7 minutes. I believe we're just waiting to see if anybody else on the entry list decides to join us for the race. They've still got 7 minutes to come on and set a lap time. But yeah, currently 14 times, and the driver's separated by around 8.5 seconds. Thilo, I think we've got someone in for a chat, if you want to say hello to them.
Hello, Sean Lee is here. So you're currently on provisional pole position, just faster than Daniel Abt, as we just discussed. How does it feel?
Hi. Nice to be here, of course, and credits to Michael. He made a great track, and Magic is saying say hello to him on the stream. So hi, Magic. The lap is really nice to drive. For sure, you need a lot of throttle control because it's quite slippery. But it's a really fun track to chuck your car around. Maybe not so much if you have a huge ass wheel. But it's a fun track. The race, we'll see how it goes.
So during the practice for this event, have you experienced any sorts of driving with other cars around here? If so, what has been your observations so far?
Overall, the lifting and coasting, to say the electric or say the fuel, is quite interesting. Several different people have different methods to do so. So I'm looking forward to see how it will pan out. Overtaking is quite hard here. If you have big arms and big car, you're able to block per se. So overtaking will be a premium, but we'll see how everybody goes. Of course, there might be a lot of close battles, specifically in the midfield, but I think Amir and one of the MLC guys might give me a run for my money.
It certainly looks that way, as we have the provisional results of qualifying on the screen. Qualifying has indeed been ended, and we're moving forward into a second free practice session here. So Sean, congrats. I think you are going to be leading the way in the Super Pole. Just to fill you guys in who are listening, the Super Pole will consist of Sean Lee, Jimmy Vertinen, Imran Ajar, Karolis Motojutis, Gaborgio and Nika Pantola, who are the top 6 provisionally in qualifying. If that changes, we will let you know. So yeah, Nova, you've got Jimmy and Imran within a second of you, as well as Karolis actually. So those 3 guys looking to challenge you for the Super Pole. Obviously, you get one more lap to do that. Do you reckon you can get a lap time anywhere near your 1:11.2?
Yeah, I mean it's quite close. I was hoping for Amir Khan to be closer, but I think he messed up and did a Ferrari strategy. He got the wrong setup, so we are down to just 3. But during the practice, my theoretical splits formed 110.9 or something. So hopefully I'll be able to dip lower than my current 11.2. We'll see, but it's important to keep the car on the track, of course, because it's a one-lap shootout.
Yeah, another one-lap shootout to come, and that's coming up in around about 14 minutes' time, I believe. If that's brought forward, we'll of course let you know. Thanks for staying with us, Sean. Your preparation for this event, how much have you done? Because obviously the strategies that are going to come into effect are far from simple, shall we say?
Yeah, so heading into this, it was preparation purely on I think the race setup was very important. Knowing that you have to lift and coast quite a lot while still keeping decent pace. Setting up the car was difficult, I'd say. I think I did an unconventional setup. I think, Pete, you should know this. I put a bit of rake in the car to make it easier on the turning, so I don't have to slide the front and the rears in so much. And that really helped. And then I just made sure I got my lifting and coasting right. So hopefully we can take the tires to the end. We are not too sure because the number 2 compound, the R2s, is a bit too cold. So R1 seems like the way to go at the moment, but we'll see how far it takes us.
Yeah, so in the race, what sort of lap times can we expect if you're trying to nurse a 30 36 or 38 litre fuel tank to the 100 lap distance around here?
Yeah, so we were actually, the drivers were having a little like e-party earlier, and we were discussing like which method was quicker, like short shifting. And for me, lifting and coasting was the best. It got me 1% fuel, which would theoretically get me to the end. Pace wise, it will be a 13.9 to around a 15, because the tires, they do reach a peak about 10 laps in, so everybody will start to go slower. Once you go past that cycle, it will come back to you. So hopefully we'll be able to keep around a 14.1 or 14.2.
Wow, so that's quite a significant drop in order to try and make the fuel last 3 seconds a lap. But this is going to be very, very interesting, because obviously at the start you don't want to be tricked by other drivers into driving maybe faster than yourself. This is a marathon, not a sprint. You have to race at your own pace. Some drivers are going to be electing to maybe go for it early and save later, or vice versa. I won't ask you to divulge your strategy on the stream, of course, but I hope whatever you've picked works for you. And yeah, this is certainly a unique event. Have you ever done anything like this before in Live for Speed, or indeed in any other sim?
I did have to do it for the first round of the TBO challenge. I was nearly out of fuel at the line. I think who was it? One of the Cherry Sports guys. They ran out of fuel. I was close to doing it, so my last lap I had to coast a bit into the final sector. So that's only like 5% of what we're doing today. This is something else. So it'll be for sure very interesting, and I guess I have to go off to do my preparation now. The Super Bowl is about to start.
Absolutely. Best of luck. I hope you can nail it on pole.
Thank you.
Sean Lee there, Thilo. Nice lengthy interview with him. That's good.
Yeah, and very interesting points you were talking about. Especially the tire strategy. I imagine that the tire strategy is going to be rather interesting, if it's really the way to go with R1s, or if someone dares to try R2s. We were just told in our ear, and maybe you might have gotten this by my little break there, the information that Super Bowl is going to start in 5 minutes. So then we will see Nico Pontola, Gabor Gier, Carolus Montejutis, Imran Ajar, Jimmy Vertonen, and Sean Lee back on track. And the Super Bowl session is then followed by the race, 100 laps, and Sean pointed out that he was able to manage the amount of fuel he needs for one lap to just under 1%. So this is going to be the target for everyone on the track.
Yeah, I heard in prep that it was about 1% a lap that people were aiming for, or just over. And before the event, I was skeptical as to whether it was even going to be possible to maintain a decent pace. But considering that 1:14 takes us down to between 8th and 9th place in qualifying, that should be a decent pace anyway. So it'll be good to see how many of these drivers can manage to finish the race to begin with. Finishing this race is part of the challenge, of course, because it's designed to be underfueled. Drivers they have to make a pit stop, but they're not allowed to refuel. So they have to do the entire race on one tank, and they've got to save as much as they can to make it to the end. So it's definitely a case of a tortoise and the hare race today, which is a first for us here. And when I asked Sean before if he'd done anything like this, he kind of mentioned that he's done it before in races because he's been low on fuel, but he's never done a race where it was designed to be underfueled. And I've never competed in a race like this, especially in Live for Speed. So it's a great concept by MRC to kind of mimic the Formula E format, and we're really looking forward to how it goes on this fantastically made replica of the Brooklyn Street Circuit New York E-Prix track. Should be a good one.
Indeed. And you were talking about not seeing this in Live for Speed so far. I guess for us, for some broadcast, the closest thing was the tire strategy of Yannick Attia when he tried to do a zero stop in the GT2 Challenge.
Yeah, plenty of drivers are electing to go pretty short on, or pretty tight on fuel. None of those are here though, so none of them electing to do that sort of strategy on race or in an actual format that suits that style of driving. Yeah, it's a lot of firsts for us, firsts for MRC, firsts for most of these drivers, and if it's a format that works, hopefully we'll see more of it. So Super Pole coming up in around about 2 minutes here, and Super Pole will last for, well, probably as long as it takes 6 drivers to go out and do a hot lap. Should be leaving each other plenty of room, we'd hope. And after that we will begin 100 laps of racing around this 2.3 kilometre New York E-Prix custom layout in Live for Speed.
I see the chat is already discussing the fuel strategies that are involved. Some are aiming for 0.8% per lap. Others are suggesting to hit the 1% per lap, pretty straightforward. Well, after all, we do have formation lap, so people need to be aware of that as well, at least I hope. But the 100 laps, Michael told me earlier that the E-Challenge not only is a symbol that this was inspired by Formula E, but also stands for endurance and economy in this race, which fits pretty well what is asked of the drivers here today.
Super Pole is about to begin. Our 6 drivers will get a short amount of time to jump onto the track and get a lap in, as we have the session beginning now. Thilo, let's see who's going to take pole position. Will it be Sean Lee, or will it be any of the 5 drivers who fell behind him in the first part of qualifying?
So first car out is the number 6 of Nico Pontola.
So yeah, he'll do a super slow outlap, no doubt.
Well, talking about fuel economy, I was told earlier that the hot laps these drivers are taking, they use about 1.3 to 1.4% of fuel on this fast lap around the track. Just to give you a sense of how much fuel they are actually having to save during the race.
Yeah, so Nico Pizzola will be doing a little bit of tyre warming, and maybe just to get those tyres up to temperature before his run.
He's now coming through the DHL chicane. And on we go. Hot lap for Nico Pontola here. Braking at around 50 meters. Ooh! Not hitting the corner pretty well there. Turn 4. Now into turn 5. And onto the back straight.
Yeah, it didn't look like a very clean first sector, did it at all? He brushed the wall, missed an apex, and he's gone a bit deep there again, and he's hit the wall. Not a strong attempt this from Nico, but let's see where it puts him. He needs to complete a few more corners yet. He's got the final sector coming up. We've got another car out on track, Thilo. If you can find out who that is, we can turn our attention to them as soon as Nico crosses the line.
Gabagir is the second driver on the track.
Through the DHL chicane for the second time. Nico Pintola, final corner. And we will have our first lap time of this Super Pole session. 6 of the top drivers from qualifying out on the track setting their time. And Nico goes into provisional pole there with a 1:12.52. He's running a pseudonym today, Janus Petka. I'm not sure what that means. But anyway, Gabor coming across the line now to start his timed lap. Nice apex to turn 1. Likewise turn 2. Nice turn 3. And no clipping of the wall at turn 4. This is looking, well, like a dance really. He's placing that car perfectly through the first sector. Out onto the back straight we go. Heavy braking down into this kind of late apex chicane. You're kind of turning into a corner that then becomes an immediate right-hander. On to sector 3 we go. Under the challenge bridge. And into the wall hard. Hopefully that hasn't cost him too much. And again a little tag of the wall. The car at the limit of its track there a little bit. Steering track. I'm sure if anyone goes for a move there, we could see some reversing happening later on in the race. As Gabor hits the wall super hard and he aborts that run, so he will not be taking pole position here today either. As we have another driver on the track, Thilo.
Yeah, Carlos is coming into the final hairpin. Down right at the harbour side. On the real life track. And he's now preparing for his fast lap through the DHL chicane, marked by these lovely yellow walls on the outside.
Yeah, we kind of wish we could paint sponsors everywhere. We've had to improvise somewhat with the layout here. Oh, a flamboyant entry into the first corner there. I love the livery on that one though. That's definitely a nice livery. Bit of a wild exit out of the first sector. Onto the back straight we go. Only one time on the board so far, with that abort from Gabor. Wondering when Nova's going to go out for his lap. Sean Lee.
He will be out last because it's the order of fast lap times here. Over the curb now into the hairpin.
Slow to a crawl there. You really have to hope that you've got enough steering lock. I think as the lap times start to drop, as drivers save fuel, that corner is going to become even more difficult because you really need to have the tyres with heat. They need to be alive. You also need to have some impetus going into that corner to get it turned. It's going to be a tricky one as Carolus Motojutis goes into provisional pole a tenth faster than Nico or Janus. So yeah, only just, as the saying goes.
Next up is the Master Race car number 15. Ajar now braking for the first corner. Here used to be a hairpin in the first version of the real-life E-Prix. And I think you can imagine how this turned out at the very start of the race.
I'm not sure I can. Why don't you describe it to me?
First corner, and it is a hairpin with, well, enough of a run to mess everything up.
hence probably why they changed it. Into the third sector we go. No hitting the wall this time, unlike Gabor earlier. Such a tight hairpin this. Yeah, you don't want to be sending it too wide in there. One of you is not going to make the corner. But it does look like one of the few overtaking opportunities on the lap, especially if drivers bounce off the wall like we saw happen just before. Final corner. This is a really tricky corner actually. It's so fast and there's very little grip and very little downforce at those speeds. Across the line, Azar takes provisional pole away from Carolis and does a 1:11.82. Our next car across the line to begin their hot lap is a... and it's a crash. That's not how you want to start your hot lap. Probably lost about a second and a half, 2 seconds there, so this is going to be probably 4th place at the very best for the master race car driver.
Jimmy Virtanen now into the left-hander, the late chicane as you called it.
Yeah, it is kind of a late chicane. It's almost kind of Hammerhead-esque, Top Gear Hammerhead-esque.
Yeah, indeed, yes.
Not really a chicane, not really a... Well, it is definitely a corner, but not really a chicane, even though it looks like one. Hard on the brakes into the final section. That's what I'm talking about in terms of really sliding the car in there. I think that will end up being the fastest way around. But you don't want to slide too much, do you?
He did slide too much, especially after his mishap in turn 1. His rear tires are cooked.
Final corner.
And he's sliding through the final corner.
Yeah, it's so little grip there. And yeah, as predicted, a 1:14.4. 4th place. One car remains, and that is the car of Aerotax Sean Lee. He's somewhere out on track.
Yeah, he's now coming through the final corner. Jimmy was sliding through. Braking for turn 1, it looks like a late apex, but he's hitting the apex rather nicely. Through turn 4 now, and turn 4 is tricky in that the outside retaining wall is pretty much on your racing line. So you really have to try hard to not hit it. Into the hammerhead section. Little straight into the left-hander down to the harbour.
Oh, a bit of a wiggle. I should remind you that Azar's lap is pretty strong. It's only 6/10 off, or less than 6/10 off what Sean managed in the first set of qualifying. So Sean can't afford any more mistakes on this lap if he wants to take pole away. The grid spot is so important if you want to be able to run your own race. There's a little bit of a wiggle out of the final chicane, and round the final corner we come. Sean Lee. It looks good, but is it good enough to take pole position in Super Pole?
Wow.
It is, and it's the fastest lap we've seen in all of practice. I think a 1:10.8. What a result for Sean Lee.
Yeah, so about half a second, if I'm not mistaken, faster than in his qualifying run. So really a great result here in the session. The session is now complete, and Sean Lee is on pole position for the Live for Speed New York E-Prix, so to speak, in Master Race Cars E-Challenge. On second position, Erman Azar. Third, Carolis Montegiutis. Fourth, Nico Pontola. We thought had a terrible lap, but Jimmy Virtanen sadly had this mishap in turn 1, and Gabor Gjør did not make it round the lap, so he will start in 6th position if he starts the race.
Yes, so those 6 will start there, and everyone else will qualify and start in the position that they had in the first qualifying session. We've got a little bit of a different start to the race here. Instead of before the formation lap happens, we will have a track walk where we'll be able to run you down all the drivers that are starting the race. That's going to be a new one for us here, and we hope it goes smoothly. But yeah, that should be coming up in a couple of moments' time. I believe there's going to be a driver's briefing before that happens. So yes, the stage is now set for the inaugural Master Race Car E-Challenge. We're very excited. We've been looking forward to this event for a long time. There's been so much preparation gone into it on MRC's side and New Dimension Racing side, and to a certain extent our side as well. So a lot of effort's gone into this, and we hope that all the drivers can put on a show for us. Sean Lee certainly has in qualifying. Look at that. He's over a second faster than Imran. That's such a huge margin around a lap that's only 70 seconds long in this case, Thilo.
Yes, indeed. But we saw during the session that the one lap is pretty demanding, and mistakes happening means mistakes ruining your lap time, so to speak. So the widespread in this session, but also in the qualifying session before, is partly explained simply by the fact that this track is demanding, and this will be really an outstanding challenge to the drivers participating in this race.
Yeah, it was one of the biggest challenges we've ever seen. I think surviving 100 laps without having to worry about fuel would be a challenge in itself, Thilo. But not only do they have to worry about making it round with the 13 other cars that will be on the track with them, they also have to manage their fuel. 100 laps with only a limited fuel capacity in the car. A reminder of the car that we're using today, the Formula XR. 2-litre inline-4 engine, rear-wheel drive, 190 brake horsepower, just under 500 kilograms with a 38-litre fuel tank. So the drivers will be needing to save over 1% per lap of fuel in order to make the distance.
But one must attest that this car already has some remarkable fuel economy. If you think about it, that it's 38-litre fuel tank, race engine, and the race itself will be about 230 kilometers after all. That's some good mileage for a race engine.
It's very good mileage for a race engine if you think about it. You're right. It's already got some pretty good economy, and it's a good stand-in for an electric car when we don't have one. It matches the power to weight quite nicely of the Formula E car of its generation. So a really nice idea by MRC. Thank you everyone for joining us for this event. Please let us know what you think of this concept. I'm sure Master Race Car and indeed us, we really will appreciate the feedback on this, how you're enjoying it, and we hope to see something similar. Let's just hope we have an exciting race. We had an exciting Super Pole there, and a good race in prospect.
Also, if you want to drive this track on your own, the track is available on the LFS forum, free to download. You just have to search for it in the layout section of it. And then you can download it and drive it yourself. You can drive it with the Fox, which is recommended by Michael there, because the Formula E idea is really well suited to this car. But you can also take another car like the RB4 or the FZ5 if you fancy that.
Yeah, or indeed the MRT, which is going to be the car that's used for the track walk, the grid walk, in just a few moments' time. The driver's briefing just concluding. The reason we're having a full driver's briefing is because this event is being run in cooperation with New Dimension Racing, who like to make the racing as close to real life as possible. So in that regard, we have a safety car, which is being driven by Master Race Cars Tim Dicknodder, as well as things like the safety car, period, virtual safety cars, and red flags and things like that. So yeah, all of the usual trimmings for real life racing thrown in here to make this E-Challenge even more realistic than it already is.
Yes, New Dimension Racing always strives to recreate the real-life racing within Live for Speed or any other sim they are deciding to sanction races in.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about something else that's coming up by New Dimension Racing very, very soon. In fact, in a week's time, we have the New Dimension Racing TBO Challenge 2020 post-season endurance happening next Sunday, the 20th of December, live here on Sim Broadcasts from 2:30. That'll be 6 hours of Aston North in the TBOs. Sign-ups for that are open on the Live for Speed forum, and you didn't have to be a part of the main championship in order to sign up to this race. So you can grab a mate and do that as a team, or you can enter as a solo driver. And those who sign up who are part of the main championship will get favoured grid position in the qualifying. On the grid. Because qualifying works a little bit differently for that event. So if you're interested in joining the 6 hours of Aston North, please have a look at that on the LFS forum. Today isn't the only event from MRC. Tomorrow we are live again from 2:15 for the BF1 League, which is also organised by Master Race Car. Round 2 from Kyoto Ring GP Long, that'll be hosted by us and brought to you by Travis Mellinger and Adam Brown. Don't miss it. The round 1 was a blast, and if you're not done with single-seater action this weekend from MRC, then you can join in with that tomorrow from 2:15. Look forward to seeing you there.
Maybe even though we are not broadcasting the race tonight, there is of course also the FBM Saturday race for Master Race Car, and they have nicknamed this weekend the Master Weekend.
Yeah, we had the NDR weekend earlier in the year, but this weekend has been coined the MRC weekend, and you can see why. There are prizes on offer for various results that happen this weekend for that, so it's really nice. We're really grateful to MRC for putting on these events, of course, for our enjoyment. And yeah, we hope that it's not the last we see of this sort of intensity, because yeah, it's great to have a full weekend of stuff and some enthusiastic drivers getting involved as well. I think we are moments away now from the start. The drivers are just gridding up, and yeah, we will get underway for the grid walk, the formation lap, and 100 laps of racing around the New York E-Prix circuit replica in Live for Speed in the Fox. I can't wait.
Neither can I. So the grid is about to be set. I think we're just waiting on the one or the other course car to join the grid, and then we will be ready.
Yeah, we have we talked about it at the top of the show, Thilo, but we have quite a full contingent of support cars and drivers helping out. Do you want to give those a mention before we get going for the start?
So our safety car today is Tim Dicknodder. We also have Jaroslav Donalik and Chris McElroy in the rescue cars today. Michael Malek will join the grid for the camera car, the MRT, in just some moments of time. In the stewards booth, we have the race director Jonathan Palmer, we have the head steward Jonathan Provost, as well as the stewards Chris McElroy, Jaroslav Donalik, and Nico Bilicic.
Yeah, so a packed support crew. Great to see. And yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how this grid walk goes. It's the first time we've tried it. And
By the way, I was just informed. I earlier said that there was going to be a formation lap. This is not the case, so there will be the grid walk, and afterwards we will have the custom lights we know from TBO Challenge.
okay, so yes, it makes sense that there's no formation lap, or else there'd be one fewer lap of fuel for the race. So yeah, those tyres are going to be getting nice and cold on the grid for the drivers, so that's another thing for them to enjoy. We like torturing drivers, don't we, a little bit, and this is going to be fantastic. Don't give them enough fuel. Make their tyres go ice cold on the grid while they wait for an MRT to drive past them. I love it. Let's get this.
Yes.
Let's get this going. I do feel a little bit for Sean, and to a certain degree Gabor as well, because those guys are both driving with mice, aren't they?
Yeah, but Gabor has not reappeared here, so he seems to have retired from this event, sadly.
That's a shame. After aborting his run in his qualifying lap, he's decided not to participate in the event, which is a shame. So yeah, five drivers from the Super Pole, and everyone else will bump up to fill that space. So how many cars are we looking at? 13 for the start.
I think so, yes.
Two minutes to go, and we will begin 100 laps. So yeah, the race should go on for almost 2 hours, and let's see how many cars finish the race. And well, I wonder who's going to win. I think Sean has shown his dominance in quali pace, but quali pace will not win you this race. In fact, quali pace will lose you this race within, well, not 100 laps, probably 90. So yeah, you've got to save a fair chunk of fuel. So Sean was saying he's going to aim for around about 1 minute 14 lap times to save as much fuel as he needs. He might not need to do that pace for the whole race. He'll wait until he has enough fuel to push a little bit more, but he needs to be aware of the cars around him. And yeah, the mixes of strategies is the thing that I'm really intrigued about today. Who's going to do what? Anyway, we are ready to go here. Let's see how this track walk goes.
So the cars are on the grid. I believe the 75 of Jabazi is having to start from the pit lane.
And here comes our camera car, Thilo.
That's a weird thing to say.
Yeah, we have a camera car. Michael Malek driving the camera car here. He's going to do a bit of a spin round and drive up the grid. And Thilo, take us away for the 13 starters here for the start of the TBO. Sorry, the MRC E-Challenge. I am in some rhythm here.
Too many challenges.
Too many challenges. We host too many challenges.
So up in pole position, slowly approaching here, is Sean Lee, the 88 car of Aerotech Newsroom. He is sharing row 1 with Ajar from Master Race Car in the number 15 car. In third position, Carolis Montejutis for Last Lap Motorsports. In 34th, in car number 34, Nikon Puntola on 4th in his white and gold car. Jimmy Virtanen following him in 5th. 6th position, Daniel Balla in the race green, grey and green car. Amra Khan, number 16, Master Race car. The number 8 car of Nemeth for Master Race car. The 22 of Bajoras. The 99 Revenga car of Tortoise and Hare. Todd Gavicius for Global Gaming Racing, and Jeff and Jacob for Race Green Autosports. Our 13 starters from the grid.
Yeah, well, that was brilliant. We're definitely doing that again. Thank you, Michael.
Life is
That's a
procedure.
very nice way to introduce the grid. Thank you, Thilo. Thilo, take us away for the start. Here come the lights.
So the cars are on the grid. We are waiting for the lights, using the well-known system, launch system from New Dimension Racing. There are the lights, 5 seconds to go until the start. All red. And we're green.
100 laps of racing has begun, and Sean Lee thunders down to the first corner, going heavy defensive.
3 wide.
Yeah, 3 wide almost.
Oh, MotoGP is wanting to into. Oh,
Got a spinner.
yeah.
Already drama. This could be a complete abort to begin with. We might not make it around the first lap, but we'll wait and see. Sean Lee's had an absolute blinder of a start.
Everyone is facing the right direction again. So Daniel Baller with a devastating start. He was caught in this spinner accident from Montejutis and Azar. I think.
Azar was involved for sure. I think. Yeah, he's down to 8th place. Sean's doing some very heavy fuel saving. I saw his engine go off there. I think he had his clutch all the way in. So, yeah, I said we were gonna see a lot of different strategies, Thilo. Some drivers electing for some very weird and wonderful stuff. This is great. Into the DHL chicane for the first time. Sean Lee about to complete the first lap of 100. So yeah, that really slow approach to the hairpin. I wonder if we're going to see that a lot.
So he engages
Again, yeah, clutch again.
with about 250 meters from the corner.
So that's taking lift and coast to a whole new level, isn't it? We're going to have to go on board with a few of these drivers at some point to see kind of the strategies that they're using. I think going on board with Sean Lee would be interesting to begin with. I think we'll do that in a few laps once things have kind of settled down. It looks like Emre Khan.
All side by side into turn 1 with Wenger and Jeff and Jacob, and now his fellow teammate Daniel Baller is joining them as well.
Yeah, Daniel Baller's managed to get past Bajoras. Bajoras at the back there now. And Daniel Baller trying to mount a charge on his teammate. That's not a great start for Daniel Baller. But it's a 100-lap race as he's side by side with his teammate. Remember that these guys are not just racing, they're also fuel saving. And they're each going to try and run their own race. This is fascinating stuff.
And this is going to be the real hard challenge here to race on the one hand, but also to keep your fuel management together.
Looking from the roll hoop of Daniel Baller as he tries to find a way maybe around Ravega there. And you can see he's short. So Daniel Baller's short shifting. Short shifting only works if you're not using much throttle as well, because of course LFS models throttle input as well as revs. So if you're low in the rev range and full throttle, you're not going to be saving as much fuel maybe as you would. He's side by side across the line nearly, but lower in the rev range. Oh, and Ravega lifts off to do some lift and coast, and Daniel goes past.
Yeah, Daniel decided to approach the corner like he would do in a hot lap, just to get past the car. He feels he is faster than anyway.
Yeah, now Jeff and Jacob's going to try and get past Ravega here. Meanwhile, Sean's setting the fastest lap. Unsurprising, he's kind of in his own race at the moment. I wonder what lap time that was.
Well, Nico Pantola is now under pressure from Emre Khan.
And we can see that Jeffin is in fact going for the move, and he's made the move just before the final sector. But yeah, Nico Pantola, Janus Petka. I do hope someone explains that pseudonym at some point. I'm not sure why he's running that pseudonym, but there we go. Each to their own.
And why he's running under German flag for this race.
Okay. Maybe it's a driver we don't know about. I don't know. As he's passed there by Emre Khan down into turn 1. Nico won't mind much about that.
And interesting to see, Emre, although he was passing Nico Pantola there, he was engaging his clutch as well, so trying to save enough fuel even though he's trying to pass the other car.
We ride on board with Sean Lee for Air Attack Racing, and I think for a moment there I thought I was watching a Formula E race, because, yeah, here he goes. Completely engages the clutch as he rolls it into the corner and then picks up the revs again, using engine braking to slow the car down. So this is a very different strategy that he's using here. Let's listen again. Yeah, so by not running any revs on the straights, at the end of the straights, he's able to get the power down out of the corner, and he must be saving enough fuel, he thinks. So let's see just how early he's lifting off down into the... Yeah, so before start-finish almost. Oh, he needs to be careful not to damage the engine when he picks up the revs. So yeah, lots of things to think about for Sean. How early does he pick up the throttle? How early does he dump the clutch? Wow, this is going to be a fascinating 95 laps that are remaining. As Azar goes past Taukvicius there, down into turn 1.
So he's slowly recovering from the spin in turn 2.
Emre Khan, meanwhile, has set the fastest lap as he's trying to maybe catch up to these front two. He clearly thinks he's saving enough fuel, and if he gets past Sean, then I'm sure Sean's going to start to sweat, but part of this race is holding your own. If Sean gets overtaken, he needs to stick to his own plan. Once you've started a plan of fuel saving, you have to stick to it. You can't just change what you're doing unless you have a backup plan, which by the time you've burnt all your fuel, it's too late by then. So Emre Khan looking racy, definitely closing down the gap to the top two, Jimmy Virtanen as well. Let's see what Emre Khan's strategy is here, Thilo. We're riding on board with him as we go onto the back straight. There's some short shifting there and not full throttle, and then some clutch in, coasting towards the first chicane, and Jimmy Virtanen's got quite sideways there, and that'll let Emre Khan catch back up a bit.
So compared to Jimmy, Virtanen, Emre is using the clutch much more.
Yeah, we'll take a lap on board with Jimmy now.
So Jimmy is more trying to lift without engaging the clutch. Short shifting and not applying throttle all the way.
Azar has made his way up to 6th place now, past Nemeth as well. So Nemeth drops down to P7, Azar up to P6 while we're watching Jimmy Virtanen's strategy. Last lap, Jimmy got quite sideways here.
Oh, Nemeth must have had a problem because he was at the tail end of the Nico Pantola group, and now he's overtaken by Taukvicius.
I don't see any damage on the car, maybe a little bit on the front left, but maybe he's just doing some aggressive fuel saving, who knows. We're hearing he had a spin at some point. So yeah, he's now racing side by side with Taukvicius down into the first chicane. Some actual racing while fuel saving, and there's contact again, and that's Taukvicius in the wall.
Yeah, and both were actually racing, so suddenly no more short shifting and no engaging the clutch.
If you're wondering where Nico Pantola is, this is Nico Pantola, Janus Petka. Someone with Google available, please find out what that means. He's running a German flag today, rather than his usual Finnish flag. I'm not sure if we're supposed to understand this reference, Thilo, but if we are, then I hope someone can fill us in. That's a good move there by Motojutis up the inside into turn 1. Both of them on the clutch. So, such a strange race we're watching here, but I quite like it. This is fascinating.
Ooh! Motojutis nearly hitting the wall there. Suddenly the car gets all understeery.
There's something novel about watching someone go for an overtake not on full throttle and with half their clutch in. It's really strange. I don't know whether the viewers are getting this sense watching it from wherever they are, but this is great. I love this. So Pekka here, or Pantola, not using all the throttle and not really getting any closer to Motojutis. Motojutis quite happy right now to be running around with a bit more throttle on. And yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense that we don't have the fuel gauge available, because it would be quite a way, well, kind of some espionage could be happening by the drivers to know where their competitors are on fuel. But actually we can't get that data, can we? So a little bit of a shame maybe, but it would be nice to know just how much fuel these guys had in their cars. As Motojutis comes across the line, he's opened that gap to Nico by quite a margin on that lap alone. Emre Khan still retaining the fastest lap, and Sean Lee, you can see there the top 3 still in the shot going down the back straight. I wonder whether Sean is managing this gap or whether he is just sticking to his own strategy still, Thilo.
I think when having such a nice gap, you can really play out your strategy to the fullest. And listening to the car, actually, it's pretty much what he described in the interview after the qualifying session.
Yeah,
a little bit of
go on.
A little bit of extra throttle into the hairpin just to get around the corner.
Daniel Baller's lining up Nemeth while that's happening. Yeah, it's really interesting to see Jimmy Versonen. He's not putting the clutch in, is he? He's just rolling with the revs, which is giving him a bit of drag and using a bit more fuel than anyone who's dumping the clutch. Let's see what Daniel Baller does. This gap's
someone running wide. That's the 22.
Yeah, at turn 1 that is. Bajorus having a tricky time of it, down in 13th place.
So he's now down a lap.
Daniel Baller exits the final corner. This is a close fight, and they look like they're going for it. It's almost as if they're up to full throttle. They're both on the clutch.
They are.
Oh, they are racing for it. Okay, so Daniel really wants to get past. Oof! And there's contact as Daniel gets a little bit sideways out of the first chicane. And Nemeth loses another place to the race green driver. Nemeth down to P8 and Daniel up to P7, as is confirmed by the timing line there.
And Nemeth still trying to race, so he goes with full throttle into the braking zone. No signs of lifting and coasting there.
Yeah, no, he's going flat out, isn't he? So I wonder whether... We have a car off. We have Taukvicius off at the first chicane. Again, this is where he was... Well, he hit the wall before when he was in a battle with someone else. I forget who it was. Could have been Jeff and Jacob. It was Jeff and Jacob for a race green. But that is not looking like a healthy front left there. I wonder what his tracking's doing.
Speaking of Jeff and Jacob, it looks like he's timing out.
Jeffin is lagging, in fact. That is a shame. Be a shame to lose him. I wonder if if someone times out from this race, that is game over. They can't be given their laps back, and he has in fact lost connection from the server. That is really unfortunate. Got to feel bad for him.
So Race Green is down to one car in this race.
Race Green's hopes rest with Daniel Ballot, and look at the gap between Sean Lee and Jimmy Vertonen. It's come down, and so too has the gap between Jimmy Vertonen and Emre Khan. It's getting tight at the top.
And now it's going to be the first real...
Yeah. Oh, close. There we go. There's an overtake on track for a lap car that's a lap down. Almost ended in tears.
But Japazi makes a good job. I think that was just the very wrong moment. as Emre Khan is now at the tail end of Jimmy Virtanen. So Master Race Car one-on-one here unfolding right now.
Yeah, Emre Khan's still with that fastest lap. Let's see what he can do on the run down to the first chicane. He's not using full revs and he's clutching in very early. Remember that Jimmy is not clutching in, so he'll have kind of better control on the corner entry because he doesn't have to bring the revs back up sharply. I've sort of noticed, especially with Sean and Emre, when they bring the revs up, the rear end of the car is just so unsettled. Watch here. You can hear the tyres spinning up as there aren't enough revs on the engine. But again, Jimmy just smoother out of on the corner exit and able to bring that gap up again. But yeah, Sean looking comfortable now out front as he comes around the final corner to complete lap 12. Losing time, okay.
Yes, he lost half a second so far on this lap. Let's see how it turns out.
Maybe he's just doing more aggressive fuel saving. I mean, he can manage the gap behind as much as he wants. He doesn't want to get tangled with those guys, so maybe if he sees those two getting close, or if the gap to them is going up, he can maybe afford a slower lap. You know, he's racing no one at the moment except himself as he tries to get past the back marker. That is who was that? Was that Replica? Yes, it was.
Replica.
The 99 car
for Tortoise and Hare.
Yeah, he needs to make sure he doesn't hold up Jimmy Virtanen. That was a little bit awkward. Yeah. Oh, and there's contact. That was a bit unnecessary from Emre Khan there. Anyway, Emre Khan made a little bit of contact with the back marker, but both through.
It's still a long race.
It is still a long race. I do notice when Sean picks up the throttle, he's very aggressive on the throttle up. He's spinning the wheels a lot. Maybe, I don't know whether he needs that for tyre temperature. Or, I mean, didn't he mention he was maybe going to try it on R1s? He is also driving mouse, remember? That might be a reason.
But yeah, he is on R1s, as you said.
Yeah, so he is trying to make the R1s go the distance. I wonder whether he'll change tyres in the pit stop. He currently doesn't have enough of a buffer to Jimmy Virtanen to do that, but the gap to Jimmy Virtanen has gone up that lap by a considerable amount, almost a full corner, as Jimmy's been overtaken by Emre. We missed that probably down into turn 1.
Yeah, speaking of tyres, by the way, the only cars on the track with R2s are actually Nico Pontola and the 99 of Replica. Ooh!
Okay, so everyone else opting to go for the R1 strategy, and it looks like Emre and Jimmy Virtanen are kind of baiting each other into racing at this point. This is spicy because they don't want to get themselves distracted from their fuel gauge, even though there's been a change for position. It definitely looks like Emre's caught up to the back of Sean Lee a lot on this lap. So whether Sean's having another slow one just to preserve that fuel tank remains to be seen. We've got a car in the wall. Who was that in the wall? It's a car just ahead of Sean Lee. It's Tarkovicius as he comes into the pits. Yeah. Oh, and he's hit the end of the pit lane.
Yeah, he opted to go into the pit lane, but was way too fast.
Okay, he pulls into the pits ahead of Sean.
If you wonder, well, how does it work in the real Formula E? In the real Formula E, the pit line is at a very different point on the track, but to, keep the layout still to a size which can be used, the pit lane was, adjusted to fit onto the start-finish straight. Also in the real Formula E, the finish straight is different from the start straight.
Car 34, drive-through penalty causing an avoidable incident, lap 1, turn 3.
So Karunas Massajutis has got a penalty then?
Yes, for turning around the car off.
Was it Azar?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so the last lap motorsport driver has a penalty then, which he'll have to serve within 3 laps. So that's going to drop him down the order. As one of the back markers moves out the way.
Pit lane speed limit, by the way, is 50 kilometers per hour.
Yeah, and there's penalties for going over that. It's also the safety car and virtual safety car speed limit as well. Handy.
It's very handy. But what is also handy so far, we did not see
Car 8, drive-through
any-
penalty. Unsafe rejoin from an incident, lap 6, turn 9.
Penalties
Okay.
galore for Nemeth as well, as Motojutis goes into the pit lane. It's an absolute crawl down the pit lane. Chance to save some fuel. And he will rejoin behind Daniel
on the
Ballard.
bright side. Speeding in the pit lane for Carolus.
Oh no, so he picked up the throttle a bit early. So he'll have another trip down the pit lane. Maybe this is his advanced fuel strategy, is pick up as many penalties as possible and complete as much of the race in the pit lane as possible. I don't think that one's going to win, but interesting. Nemeth also coming down the pit lane to serve his. Hopefully he can get the exit right. The exit's quite late. Crosses the pit exit line a bit, but there we go. We've had a spin for Jabazi, and he's hit the wall on the exit of the first chicane. The kind of, I want to call it the hammerhead chicane.
Fastest lap by Sean Lee, 1 minute 13.53.
Okay, so Sean's dipped into the 13s. That must mean he thinks he's got a bit more fuel in hand to maybe set some quicker lap times. I wonder if any of the drivers have completed a full 100 lap test run. Azar passes Replica. That's that's to put another lap on him. And Sean's got past a back marker as well. It's one of the Master Race Car drivers. And yeah, Emre Khan. Nemeth, yeah. Emre Khan has gapped Jimmy a little bit more as well.
Yeah, and also Nico Pontola has now a larger gap to Azar. Oh well, yeah, Carolus had to go to the drive-through penalty, yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Janos Petka, or Nico Pontola as you might know him, currently P4 in the E-Challenge. Car 46 we hear is retiring. That's Simas Taukavicius. That's a shame. Yep, so that car retires. We're down to 11 drivers and we are only 17 laps completed here. But it's a race of attrition. It's a challenge for a reason. The track is the first challenge. The second challenge is surviving your opponents. And the third challenge, of course, is making it to the finish with less fuel than you need.
Well, so the 3 E's for the challenge are environment, endurance, and economy.
It should have been called the Triple E Challenge.
E-Cube challenge.
E-Cubed Challenge, yes. Sean Lee leads as he comes around the final corner to complete lap number 18. Then we've got number 16, Emre Khan, who's in a close battle with his teammate Jimmy Virtanen. Then it's Janus Petka, otherwise known as Nico Pontola, on his own a little bit here in P4. Then it's Imran Azar, rounding the hairpin. He's down in 5th place. Then Daniel Ballard, the sole remaining race green car after Jeff and Jacob unfortunately timed out from the server earlier on. He's in P6. Then it's Carolus Motojutis, who's been down the pit lane twice, once for a penalty for...
Drive-through penalty for Nico Pontola, and he retires from the race. He was entering the pit lane.
Okay, so instead of serving that, he's decided to abort his run. I'll continue on the rundown. Carolus has served a drive-through for a lap 1 incident with Azar, and he's also been down the pit lane for speeding. So he's now promoted to 6th because Nico has aborted his run. Nemeth in P7, Revega P8, Jabazi P9, and Bajoras in P10. He's been promoted a bunch of places by cars who've lost connection and bailed. We lost Gabor Gier before the race even started. He didn't finish his Super Pole lap and decided not to continue in the event. We've lost Jeff and Jacob through no fault of his own. His internet let him down on this particular occasion. We've lost Simas Taukavicius and now Nico Pontola. So 10 drivers remain, Thilo, and it's a good 10 drivers. We've got Sean Lee on a mission here. So far ahead of the 2 cars behind now. You can still see the top 3 in that shot. But yeah, there's a big gap between the top 3 and this man, Imran Azar in P number 4. We're coming up to 20% of the way through the race. It's quite easy to work out the percentages, Thilo, because there's 100 laps.
Indeed.
We don't need your famous calculator for that one.
Yeah, one of 3.
Oh, we've got a spinner in the background. I'm not sure who that was. Was it? No, it wasn't Emma. It was the car ahead of him. It's a lap car. Trying to work out who it was from the skin. Was it? It wasn't Nemeth.
I sadly didn't catch the scene, so I can't help you on that.
Yeah, it was just behind Sean Lee at the start. I mean, there's quite a lot of grey cars. I'm figuring. I need to work out who the grey cars are, and then try to distinguish between them.
So grey with a bit of yellow is Emre Khan. Grey with a bit of green is Jimmy Vertonen. Grey with a bit of lighter grey is Azar. Grey with lots of green is Daniel Baller.
Daniel Baller's easy. That car's greener than the greenest green. It's greener than the green traffic lights we've got around the place. It's very green.
Still half grey.
True. It was Bajorus who nearly had a spin, I've determined. There's so many grey cars. I apologise. It's the Scavia default FOX livery with a number on it. And he's hit the wall. But he's still going. Fair play to him, down in 10th place.
Yeah, and he's in a fight for position because the car in front of him is for position.
There we go.
Shabazi.
This is a race for the final position. He's got a bit... No, he hasn't. He's nailed the brakes there, so Jabazi drops to the back and Bajorus moves up to P9.
It is also fascinating when toggling through all the cars on track, sitting in Almo's car and listening just as the cars engage the clutch right around the place. Oh no, it's Jaroslav Donlik actually.
Jaroslav Donlik's positioned his car. He's kind of in the middle sector. He has quite an interesting view, doesn't he, through this little peephole at the action. But yeah, Sean Lee is the one who's using the clutch to good effect throughout the lap. Let's ride on board with him again. So he puts the clutch down just as he crosses over start finish, drops to second gear, which he thinks is enough to, yeah, it's just about enough to pick up the throttle for the first chicane. Then he runs through this tightening or opening right-hander section onto the back straight. Let's listen to when he dumps the clutch again for... Okay, so really early. It's like 250 metres he's dumping the clutch before the hammerhead. Into second gear once again for this left-right late apex and then picks up the throttle. He's using mouse remember, so he has no real control over how much throttle he's putting down. It's either on or off. Very early, about 100 metres before the left-hander into sector 3. 75 metres into first gear for the hairpin. Mashes the throttle. 100 metres for the right-hander before the DHL chicane. Third gear that time. Into the chicane. Nicely over the curbs. And he rounds the final corner. So yeah, he spends quite a lot of the lap on the clutch, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. I mean, if you're looking at the charts published by the Formula E organization team, there you can see that the drivers there are also rather early lifting and coasting. However, they also have to recuperate the energy under braking, so they have an additional lever in the cockpit to engage their MGUK, and then it turns into a generator that feeds the braking energy or the current kinetic energy back into the battery. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to go for 45 minutes around a track like here at the Brooklyn Street Circuit for the New York City E-Prix.
Yeah, we're going for quite a lot longer than 45 minutes this evening. We're approaching a quarter of the way through the race, and we've been running for just under half an hour. So yeah, we're looking at about just under 2 hours for this race. This is like Grand Prix length Formula E race. So yeah, this is a really big challenge. It's one of the E's, isn't it? Endurance. As who was that? Was that Replica going the other way? Yep. For Sean.
Fastest lap by Sean Lee, 1:13.47.
Yeah, Replica letting through Jimmy Versonen. And Emre Khan has contact there with Jimmy Versonen. Jimmy very eager to get around, but Replica driving his own race. Mobile chicanes within a track that is littered with chicanes. It's quite difficult to pick your line through sometimes, especially considering how tight the corners are, but yeah. Sean Lee leading. Go on.
One thing looking at the lap times. Currently we're about 3 seconds slower in this race session compared to qualifying. In Formula E, you also see that the race laps are significantly slower than the qualifying laps, also about 1.5 to 2 seconds. But usually the fastest race laps are done in attack mode, which is a gimmick of the Formula E, where you are having 4 minutes of additional 25 kilowatts of energy. The car here and the simulation and the format we are using here does not see any sort of attack mode. So these drivers, when they attack, they actually have to do it while using the normal specs of the car.
Yeah, if you're just tuning in and you're wondering what is going on, what is happening here, why is the cars with engines using the clutch halfway down a straight in an environment that looks like it was made of Lego? Well, you're joining Master Race Car's E-Challenge on a custom-made layout within Live for Speed using its layout editor by Master Race Car themselves. It's a great layout. It's a one-to-one replica of the New York E-Prix track, and you're riding on board the front wing of Jimmy Versonen's Formula XR, a car with a 38-litre fuel tank, which they're having to save fuel to make it the 100 laps. Around about % of that fuel tank a lap that they'll need to save.
So you've got 38 liters for about 230 kilometers of race distance.
Yeah, Jimmy, one of the only drivers who's not using the clutch down the straights. He's just letting the car idle its way down the straight on those revs. So he's doing it in the more traditional sense, lifting and coasting without cutting the engine or using the clutch.
Car 99 drive-through penalty awarded, causing unsafe rejoin. Lap 23, turn 1.
Oh no, Replica, who's driving through the first chicane, the hammerhead chicane now, receiving a penalty there. So he'll need to make a trip down the pit lane. He's got quite a lot of space to Joras, so it won't affect his race behind, but it will affect his race going forward.
But I don't know if Replica's gap to the cars behind is actually enough. He might just slot in between the cars of Boyoras and Javasi.
Maybe. Let's see how quickly he gets round and goes down the pit lane. He's not Oh no, he is choosing to go in this lap. Here he goes.
Very tricky entry.
Yeah, so down to 50 Ks. Doesn't want to go over 50 Ks, else he'll get himself another penalty. So serving his drive-through now. And let's see where he comes out in relation to Bahoras. Bahoras crossing
just
past
him.
finish line, he's already gone. And Jabazi's at the final corner. And Replica is down at turn 1. So he only lost 1 position from that. He won't want to lose any more, I'm sure. That penalty for an unsafe rejoin on lap 23. Sean Lee's looking very comfortable up front. He's about to complete lap 28 of 100. As he dumps the clutch as he crosses the start-finish line. Emre Can close behind. That gap has come down, I'd say. I think Jimmy Verton and Emre fancy taking some time out of Sean Lee now. But it's remained around about there for, well, the majority of the last 20 laps at least. Jimmy Verton was ahead of Emre Can early on, and Emre Can has managed to get back past Jimmy.
The question is how many drivers are actually speculating on, well, safety car, virtual safety car, or anything.
I was going to mention this at the beginning, because if there was going to be a safety car, for whatever reason, I thought it would have happened right at the start when all the cars were plummeting down into the first chicane complex. But it didn't happen, and I wonder how many people kind of banked on having maybe 3 laps of safety car to do some extreme fuel saving. To be honest, I am very keen to see a race happen without a VSC or a safety car, which, if it keeps going like this, will probably happen, and we'll have to see all the drivers do their own fuel saving without the aid of a safety car, period. It might still be quite difficult to save the necessary fuel behind the safety car, of course, depending on how some of the drivers go, as Jimmy Verton lights our timing screens up with purple and sets the fastest lap of the race so far.
A 1 minute 13.29 by the Finn.
So still around about 2.5 seconds off quali pace, or at least Sean Lee's quali pace. I wonder how that compares to Jimmy's quali time. But yeah, it looks like he's fancying closing that gap up to Emre just a bit more. The top 3 have pulled a monstrous gap over the rest of the field. 4th place man Imran Azar just crossing start finish now. The others ahead of him are into sector 3 already.
Yeah, Azar with the very unfortunate turn 1 incident, so he was put down the order quite massively. The other cars in between either got penalties or retired from the race, or were spun round as well. So Daniel Balla behind him on 5th position was also involved in this turn 1, lap 1 incident, or technically turn 2. Yeah, Carolus Montejutis, 2 drive-through penalties for him so far today. He is down in 6th position, a little bit in a no man's land. So currently the only car in sector 2, just to give you a reference. 7th position for Nemeth. He is a full lap ahead of P8. Ooh! Pujaras, who hit the wall quite hefty.
Yeah, that was a big hit.
Ninth position for the 99 of Revega after his drive-through penalty, and Jabazi in 10th position, letting Emre Can and Jimmy Verton pass. Now, Jabazi had nowhere to go.
No.
Maybe a bit faster to let them pass on the straight, but then again, depending on how you exit the previous corner, this might not have been an option. So these 10 drivers are still running here after 30 laps, 32 laps even, in the E-Challenge by Master Race Car and sanctioned by New Dimension Racing at this wonderfully recreated Brooklyn street circuit in Live for Speed as an autocross concrete replica.
Yeah, if you haven't tried the layout, you can get it on the LFS forum. It's also going to be, I expect, available on the MRCE Challenge server for a few days afterwards if you fancy having a go. I don't know how people have the patience to sit down and build layouts like this. It's quite incredible, especially how accurate it is. When you overlay the track map on top of it, it's perfect. I mean, when we were setting up the cameras for this event, you could see that everything matched up perfectly with the real life counterpart. It looks like Jimmy Vertinen and Emre Khan are in some alternate race to everybody else. They've been together since the start. It seems like they're both kind of pushing quite a lot. So comparing their fuel saving strategy to Sean Lee, obviously I hope all of our 10 drivers finish, but if there was going to be anybody who I didn't think was going to make it would be this pair, because they've been really going for it. They're saving a bit now, and yeah, that's I'm sure they're doing okay, but it seems like they're having more of a kind of competitive race than anybody else out there right now.
Yeah, but also don't forget that they just had some unfortunate backmarker traffic, which Jimmy was able to get past because Emre pretty much opened the door.
I wonder if Emre is hampering Jimmy's strategy at all here. I wonder whether this is kind of this strategy that Emre's using is really affecting Jimmy, or vice versa. I don't know. It's a strange race to be watching. You can't really be sure what everyone's doing, and you can't really be sure what everyone's thinking of. We hear that the pit window is open for the leaders. They have to make one pit stop in this race. However, they are not allowed to refuel. If any of them refuel, it's an instant disqualification, so they need to make sure they've got that option turned off in their pit strategies. Really would be unfortunate for anybody to be disqualified for that error. Seeing as it's quite easy to prevent that from happening, but we'll see. Hopefully all the drivers have got that sorted out.
But seeing that the pit window opens about 1/3 into the race, you can easily imagine that the pit window itself is quite dramatically big. So might be still some time until we see action in the pit lane. Pit lane action also used to be a feature of Formula E in the first 4 seasons, when the battery capacity was not enough to make a whole race distance. Back then they swapped the cars, so you had a spare car in the pit lane and you were jumping out of your car and into the new car.
Yeah, E certainly didn't stand for efficiency, did it, back then?
No, definitely not, and it was one of several points people were poking fun at.
Oh, Jimmy. Emre seems to be doing quite well at getting past back markers, and Jimmy always seems to meet them in more tricky positions. That really didn't help him there, just meeting that car at the entry to the Hammerhead. As Emre loses the car a little bit there. He did take the fastest lap on the last lap, I should mention as well, Emre. So clearly got some good pace, but yeah, he doesn't want to be going too quickly because who knows how much fuel he's got left in that car.
It is rather an interesting factor if you look at this as a system that going fast actually is hurting your race in a way, as you need more fuel and as you are pretty much fuel limited in this very race.
Yeah, we should mention that the telltale signs that someone's got it very wrong is if with 20 laps to go, the cars are crawling around the lap. like really crawling around the lap. It's so hard to save enough fuel. That, you know, if anyone's got it so drastically wrong, the final 30 laps for them are going to be painful. I hope that Sean and Emra and Jimmy have got it right, because if we're waiting for 10 cars to crawl around, then, well, I hope you haven't got a busy Sunday, Thilo, because it could be a late night.
So you mean it takes all the way into Sunday?
Day 30 of MRC's E-Challenge, and Sean is still on lap 98? Yeah. No thanks. Come on, Sean. Please tell me you
The
got it
12
right.
days of the challenge instead of Christmas.
Yeah, forget advent calendars.
Yes. By the way, since we are in this festive season, we can say Happy Hanukkah, because that's currently going on for our viewers. If you're celebrating in Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. Sean is looking comfortable. He's definitely... Yeah, I'm sure this is the weirdest race he's ever competed in. I'm really enjoying watching this. I think if Sean manages to win this in the way he's currently going, then yeah, he's outsmarted everybody else, because his strategy is so delightfully simple. But he's able to push the throttle fully to the floor because he's using mouse everywhere around the lap where he needs to, and then at a certain point, approaching the braking zone, he just dumps the clutch in, chooses a gear, and then picks up the throttle again at just before the apex. It's so simple, and if it works, then if we do another E-Challenge, if you're not using this strategy, then I hope it's better, because you're probably not going to win. It's good to see.
Yeah, he is now closing up to Corollas Montejudas, so I think in about 1 or 2 minutes we will have only the top 5 cars left on the lead lap.
What is Emre Khan's fastest lap currently, Thilo?
1 minute 13.08.
So nearly in the 12s. It's quite fast, isn't it?
It's definitely faster than what Sean Lee was thinking of earlier in the interview. So I think he said he expects times to be in the 14th. Obviously, depending on what the race is actually presenting to you, you are opting to drive a bit faster than that.
So Sean's definitely sticking to the more consistent pace. He's not bothered by the faster lap times. He's doing his own pace, which he needs to do. I think he put the clutch in quite a bit earlier there, so maybe he's even having to do a bit more fuel saving at this point.
But maybe it's also a question of how it is in your muscle memory. I mean, it's pretty much going against anything you're using in LFS in any other series and race. So I guess it's quite a conscious decision at times to get onto the clutch, to disengage the engine, to let it run without actually going full throttle. I mean, don't forget, these drivers are racing here for fun. They are not paid by manufacturers to race in their electric powertrains in a chassis built by Spark.
That's what you think. Sean's got sponsorship No, Sean doesn't have sponsorship. But yeah, if you're watching this and you have any comments, anything you like, anything you can suggest, then please leave some feedback in the chat or on the forum, in MRC's E-Challenge subforum. I'm just watching this in fascination. I really don't know. We don't know who's got enough fuel on board. We don't know who's pushing too hard. If I had to put a bet on who's pushing too hard, I'd choose one of the two cars on screen right now. Leading this little battle is Emre Khan, and closely followed behind is Jimmy Vertinen. They've been this close since the beginning. I just hope that they're paying enough attention to their fuel gauge. I think they are. It's just remarkable how close their strategy is at the moment. But the top three, so far ahead now of Azar, Daniel Balla and Motigutis. And I think, has Motigutis dropped off the lead lap yet? Not quite. Sean is bearing down on him, but yeah, still 6 cars on the lead lap, just.
Oh, Emre, slight touch off the wall, and now Jimmy Vertinen is in the slipstream.
Oh, and Emre lagged a little bit, and there was contact. Hopefully no more lag issues. Thinking about slipstreaming, Thilo, if these straights were longer and there were fewer corners, slipstreaming could be an excellent way of saving fuel.
I think to a degree it still is. I mean, around 100 laps, even something that saves you, let's say, 0.05% is still worth pursuing.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, every little helps, right?
Indeed.
Just throwing that out there for the next E-Challenge, if there is one. Something for people to think about. This really is these guys really are guinea pigs, aren't they? They're kind of just testing this format. Like, this is really fascinating. We're approaching the halfway stage as well. Whether anybody decides to make a pit stop halfway through or leaving it till a bit later, maybe. We'll see. It's going to be very hard over the first set of curbs. Part of the trick with lifting and coasting, especially in a race like this, is you don't want to be using the brakes too much or too hard through the corners, because you want to be as smooth as possible out the corners, don't you? As Emre has to get the anchors on. If you time it perfectly, like Sean is doing, you don't waste any energy entering the corners, and you don't lose any time exiting the corners either. Jimmy does seem to be overdriving into corners slightly, not slowing the car down enough to be smooth. Wasn't always the case. At the beginning of the race he was doing quite a good job of that, but right now he's looking a bit laboured into the corners. Oh, he's going for a send and there's contact. He went for a really late move on Emre, and he's got through, but not without contact, so I wonder whether the stewards will look into that. It was pretty late, and luckily there was no spin or anything, but yeah, Jimmy Vertinen up to P2 once again. That position will be updated at the timing line at the end of the straight as he crosses it now, and he registers P2. Into sector 2 he goes. He was sick of looking at the rear wing of Emre Khan, Thilo.
Yes, and maybe it gives him the advantage that if Emre, or should Emre at some point again have some smaller internet issues, he's not hitting into the respawning car.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe that was an overtake for a necessary overtake to stop that from happening. Maybe he has to change his strategy now. Maybe he's using a bit more fuel to avoid the slipstream perhaps or something, I don't know. Only the drivers know, and we hope we have a chat to them after the race. We chatted at length to Nova before the race. He gave us a little bit of an insight into what some of the drivers would have been thinking about, but judging by what we're seeing right now, Sean gave it more thought than some of the other drivers maybe. Potentially not fair, because Jimmy and Emre are doing a good job. They're still within striking distance of Sean, and we don't know, Sean might have got it wrong. We will not know until the end.
Yeah, Sean is currently behind Carolus, who says, well, I'm still about the same speed as you, so...
He does now let him through. So that is now 5 cars on the lead lap. Sean Lee, Jimmy Verton and Emre Khan, Imran Azar and Daniel Balla, as there's a change for position lower down. Ravega gets past Bajoras, and there's a Daniel Balla in between there. Those two as well. As Daniel Balla goes past Ravega now. But look at the gap, Thilo, between the top 3. It's less than 3 seconds now. Sean rounding turn 1, Jimmy close behind, and Emre a little bit further behind. So unless Emre is just being pulled along by Jimmy here, maybe Emre's not looking at his fuel gauge maybe as much, or maybe because we're approaching more round numbers, Jimmy's able to do maths in his head more quickly and has worked out that I've been saving too much fuel or I've not been saving enough or something. But either way, Sean is looming large.
And what is interesting to see, Sean's rear tires are actually getting rather thin.
So we've lost a car.
Emre's.
Who do we lose?
Bajoras timed out.
Oh no, so a second timeout. That's unfortunate. That car will not be able to rejoin, of course. It's the downside of this format. You can't have cars rejoining and getting laps back in this endurance. Surviving all 100 laps is part of the game.
There needs to be some sort of server-side fuel input. Like actually, when I was competing in R-Factor back in the day, that's quite a few years ago, the server was set in a way with the V8 supercars that they start with a minimum amount of fuel.
Yeah, Nova responded slightly. I don't know whether it's going to be it's not going to be fastest lap material. I think just Jimmy and Emre were just for a couple of laps really pushing for some reason.
Yeah, but Jimmy is still pushing. He was half a second faster than Sean on the first sector alone.
Jimmy's at the wall. Yeah, you can see the orange and yellow car of Sean just darting in and out of view. This is how close the lead battle is. When we hit 50% through this race, Thilo, do you expect to see... Could we expect to see...
Oh, Sean's coming into the pits.
Sean's in the pits. Wow, okay. So there will be a lead change, albeit temporarily.
Yeah, Jimmy Vertonen in the lead.
Here comes Sean. Emre Khan takes the fastest lap of the race. So these two really are pushing. Was that a 12? That must have been a 12.
Jimmy did a 14.3 and Emre did a 13.8.
Okay, so this was a faster lap from before. My mistake. Sean leaves the pit lane now. And he's back on his way and he rejoins in P3.
So he did not make it halfway and his tires were getting really crisp and really thin.
Did he change them?
Yes, he changed them.
Okay, so he's gone for a tyre swap, which means that if Jimmy if Jimmy thinks he's got better tyres, or if Emre thinks he's got better tyres, then and that they can make the distance, which would be remarkable.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think the R1s are going to last the whole race distance.
Yeah, 2 hours is a long time for these little R1s.
And for Sean, there is the additional factor that on mouse he really has just a digital throttle application, so he's probably wearing the rear tires more than those driving on a wheel.
Yeah, back to the point before Sean darted into the pit lane. I hope no one else interrupts me by pitting, but at halfway the drivers will be able to make quicker calculations in their head about how much fuel they've got left. Obviously, it's a simpler number. So we will see if any of the driving styles changes. with it being 100 laps, it will be easier for the drivers to do the calculations in their head all race long, because LFS
By
gives
the way,
you a percentage of fuel remaining.
I expect Emre to join the pit line soon as well, because now his rear tires are also looking rather thin.
Okay, well, he's in a comfortable position. He's not letting Jimmy get away. He opts not to take down the pit lane this lap. The last thing, Thilo, that you want in a race like this, the last thing is a puncture. If you end up in a wall, or if you end up with damage that requires more throttle, then you could spend 3 laps worth of fuel, or three laps worth of fuel saving trying to get round to the pit lane again. So many things to think about.
By the way, one thing I just realized now, Sean only changed the rear tires, so for the next couple of laps his balance in the car will probably be all over the place.
He only changed the fronts, did you say?
The rears.
The rears. So he's got enough tread on the front to survive another
Yeah, it looks
52
like.
laps. Okay. So Jimmy Vertinen now leads this race ahead of Emre Khan. Master Race Car leading the way, but we don't know where Jimmy's going to come out once he makes his stop, because Sean has already stopped.
Emre's coming in.
And now Emre's coming in. Okay, so this is interesting. Let's see if Sean's strategy of only changing 1 axle worth of tyres has helped him here. Emre elects for the first pit box.
And 4 new tires for Emre.
Okay, so again, potentially another big brain move for Sean Lee, only changing 1 axle as he overtakes Emre. Emre exiting pit lane now, and Sean carves past him. Sean up to P2 again then. The top 3, 2 of which have pitted. Jimmy Vertinen, the only car within the top 3 yet to make his stop. Will he change 1 axle? Will he change 2? Sean's gained a bunch of time. Look how much time he's gained over Emre, because he only changed 1 axle. Emre's only just coming onto the back straight now, so that's huge. That's a lot of time.
But to be honest, I thought it would be more than that. Because he was already ahead when entering the pit lane, and I think changing just 1 axle of tires is about 6 seconds.
It's not that. It's not that much, is it? I thought it was maybe slightly less than that. Jimmy didn't elect to pit that lap, so he's gone now over half distance without changing tyres. So if he makes it another lap, he's comfortable to the end if he changes tyres.
His tyres still look better than the tyres of Sean or Emre when they decided to pit. However, unlike those two, his front left tyre also shows more wear than the ones of the 2 mouse drivers.
Well, at this point, he's in control of the race. He doesn't have to necessarily wait to pit. He could pit and get those tyres on. It depends whether he thinks there's any advantage to staying out and running around on his own in free air with tyres that are okay. He can pit whenever he wants. No pressure, as long as he still has pressure in his tyres.
Well, the big advantage... Oh, he's coming
in the pits. So, this is important. Let's see where he comes out in relation to Sean Lee. Where is Sean on the lap? Sean is entering the hairpin now, just before the right-hander, before the DHL chicane. Jimmy pulls into one of the later pit boxes, 3 from the end. He's stationary, and how many axles is he changing?
All.
So he's gone for all 4. That was a quick stop though. So it's like 3 seconds an axle by the looks of it. As Sean tears past and retakes the lead of the MRC E-Challenge. Jimmy Vertinen still close behind in P2, so that extra axle hasn't cost him too much time. But it has certainly cost him. So the top three, go on.
Of the top three, only Jimmy Virtanen made it over the halfway mark with his tyres.
Yeah, that does leave a lot of question marks over Sean Lee and Emre Khan's tyres at the end. If they were thin on lap 45 for Sean, then how are they going to be 55 laps later? He'll have to get an extra 9 or 10 laps out of those tyres. That's a lot of laps extra. So maybe Sean has to do a 2-stop. And I'm sure that would definitely throw the advantage in the favour of Jimmy Virtanen and Emre Khan.
To quote our dear friend Jack Eyre, that would throw a spanner into the works.
It would. I thought you were going to choose another quote from Jack Eyre there. I'm glad you didn't.
So Rivega was in the pits, fourth car to do the, well, sort of mandatory pit stop. It would have been interesting to see what Nico Pantola was able to do with his R2 tyres, but sadly he's out of the race, as his alter ego decided to retire from the race.
So no R2 runners left in the race then at this point. Everyone else on R1s. And yeah, that means we won't get the answer as to whether the R2 or R1 strategy is better, other than to say that, well, the R1 strategy works, if it works. But will Sean Lee have to make a second stop? That's what I'm interested in now. If he could only get 45 laps out of his first set, and the gap to Jimmy Virtanen is, well, less than a home straight length, it could have been a genius strategy from Jimmy to preserve his tyres, rather than worrying necessarily about being in the lead.
And one thing that is quite obvious right now, he is currently further into his tyre life, so he's experiencing the heat cycle. Also means he is around his heat peak at the rears.
It's definitely becoming a 3-horse race. Azar now entering the back straight on the lead lap. If Sean has to make a second stop, Azar may come into play. He is a long way back, but if he continues to do his strategy and maybe has realised he saved too much or something, maybe he could come back into play later on for a potential podium. Actually, he's perfectly poised if he can get a little bit more, a little bit closer to the top 3. Daniel is not too far behind, so after getting tangled up at the start, Daniel really lost a lot of time and hasn't really been able to make it back, Thilo.
It doesn't look that way. Carola's in the pits. 4 new tyres for him.
Yeah, just leaves the pits now. Both axles.
Emre Khan, a second pit stop for him. What happened this...
Huh. What? That doesn't make any sense. Unless he picked up damage or something, or
he was pretty sure he wouldn't make it on that set because maybe a big flat spot. Oh, drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane.
Okay, so Emre Khan's race not only ruined by... I don't know. That could have been his... I mean, it's 55 laps. He pitted on just before 50. Maybe he was trying to come out in some window or something. But either way, he's got himself another drive-through. That's a shame. I didn't see him crash.
Me neither, but if you are really that short on tyres, any lock-up, any flat spot will harm you at the end of the stint. So maybe he did a lock-up quite dramatically and we didn't see it on the stream. And he decided, I won't live to the end with these tyres, so better safe than sorry and pit now. But sadly, due to the drive-through penalty, he is going to fall down the order quite a bit.
Possibly now is the time to pay attention to Sean Lee and Jimmy Vertonen's lap times. I think the gap is that big. You can see on your screen. Jimmy has the tyre advantage at this stage. Sean has to make his tyres last 10 laps longer than Jimmy's, and Thilo and I do not think that's possible. No one has managed has anybody managed a 55 lap stint? Who has still to make a pit stop? I think has everyone been down the pit lane? Did Daniel Balla pit already?
Daniel Balla still needs to pit.
Okay, so he could potentially make it. Well, he'll definitely make it on the end.
Just coming down the pit lane.
Okay.
As Emre Khan is serving his pit lane speed pit drive-through penalty for pit lane speeding.
So Nemeth pulls into his box. Daniel Balla then, he will be doing the race on a one stop. Jimmy Vertonen will be doing it on one stop just, potentially. Well, he had lots of life left, so yeah.
Yes.
One stop for Jimmy Vertonen. Question marks over Sean Lee, and definite question marks over this man, Emre Khan, with the fastest lap of the race, who made a second pit stop for unknown reasons, probably tyre reasons for later in the race.
And he's one lap down.
And he's now a lap down, yeah. So from potentially being in a position to pick up maybe even the win, he for some reason is now a lap down. And yeah, did he just serve his drive-through, or is he yet to serve that?
He had served it. And if you now look at the track, suddenly you've got Sean Lee, Emre Khan, and Jimmy Vertonen right
together again.
But sadly, Emre Khan is a lap down.
Imagine if Jimmy didn't get the memo and saw Emre somehow back ahead of him. How did that happen? He's a lap down, Jimmy.
Explain.
So the leaders back together again, but not in the way you thought or expected. Sean Lee leads from Jimmy Vertonen, and Azar, after I almost ruled him out maybe 2 laps ago, has inherited third place. So he's currently on the third step of the podium, and Emre Khan has an awful lot of work to do if he wants to get that podium back. So much work, in fact. He only has 43 laps to do it in. That's going to be tight.
I'm not sure if Azar already was in the pits, but his tyres look phenomenally good.
Azar has pitted, I believe, yes. And Daniel Balla may then be in striking distance of a podium if anyone ahead of him now has any more problems. So Sean's big ideas of using the clutch extensively and almost perfectly, you'd have to say, means that his fuel saving is likely on point, but what isn't on point is his tyre saving. His probably his digital mouse inputs for throttle and brake won't be helping him preserve those tyres. He did, however, only change the rears, which means he saved a bit of time, but probably not enough time if he needs to go down the pit lane again, especially considering Jimmy Vertonen is right there ready to pounce. Jimmy won't need to pit again.
And we were talking about that.
Emre's going for a move, sorry. To unlap himself. Thinking about it. Sorry, Thilo.
We were talking about the fact that the tyre life is pretty much determined by the actions you do on the track, be it flat spots or things like that. Now, with Sean just changing the rear axle of tyres, he was in a very unbalanced or misbalanced car at the first laps of his stint, and as a result he is still not completely out of the heat cycle yet.
Nemeth has spun at turn 1, sorry to interrupt. Hopefully this doesn't affect the leaders. No. Nemeth has resumed. Sorry, carry on. You're talking about tyres.
Yeah, we were talking about tyres. The question will be if Sean's tyres are nursed around enough on these unbalanced laps, on these first laps of the stint. Not that due to the imbalance in the car itself. Maybe his fronts are suffering more and won't make it to the checkered flag. His rears are still rather hot compared to his fellow competitors. And Jimmy is approaching.
Yeah, the gap between Jimmy, I was just going to say, and Sean is the closest it's been since the start, I'd probably say. I think this is the closest they've been on track. Jimmy is putting in lap times. He's got past Emra because Emra's a lap down, obviously, and has to let them through. So, yeah, after battling with Sean to try and get through, Emra's thought better of it. And now Jimmy Vertinen for Master Race Car, the hosts, is setting his sights on winning their inaugural E-Challenge. And what a result that would be for them.
The chat points out that Jimmy was able to take 3 seconds from Sean over the last couple of laps. As Nemeth does his pit stop. Or did his pit stop, rather.
What sort of lap times is Azar doing? What's his best compared to, say, Jimmy?
His best lap time of 1:14.16 and his last of 1:15.6, so he is quite far off.
Yeah, he's lapping. Maybe his tyre saving just isn't as effective as Jimmy, and that's not allowing him to do quicker laps than him. So yeah, dropping back from the top 3 now. That gives some hope to Daniel Balla and Emre Khan potentially for the last step on the podium. But yeah, I'm really pleased to say that the battle for the top step on the podium is very much alive. Sean likely to have to make a second stop, and Jimmy looking fast.
So Daniel's fastest lap is actually the same as Azar's, so at least on absolute speed they are matching each other. As we're now approaching a very, very interesting looking battle. I mean, you've pointed it out at the beginning of the race that these fights are looking rather interesting for an outside view.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Ravega, the 99 car, entered under the team Tortoise and Hare Racing, and there's literally no better way to describe this race than that. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever watched. Yeah, it's great. I love this format. As you can see, Jimmy Vertinen is lifting before he even reaches start finish to try and save fuel in his Fox, as he follows Sean Lee, who is tyre limited, we believe, and will possibly have to make a stop again. Fascinating end to this race. I say end, we've got 37 laps to go, which is more than a third of the race.
Well, when we see this racing and think of Formula E and fuel races, we usually think of rather modern phenomena. Of course, there is the odd fuel race in NASCAR, which is a whole different topic. But back in the day, during the Group C era, they actually got a tank of fuel for the race, and they were only allowed to refuel from that very tank. And especially at the heights of the manufacturer's wars in the Group C era, the engines were actually too thirsty to accommodate these fuel tanks, and so many cars stranded the Le Mans 24-hour race in the last hour by running out of fuel.
That's
So it's
fascinating. I
not
didn't know that.
modern. It's been a part of motor racing for 40 years then, if we put that into perspective.
Azar has pitted. This must be his first pit stop, I believe. So yeah, Daniel Balla then.
Oh, no change of tires. Just a
Okay.
quick, stop and go.
Yeah, well, Daniel Balla's been promoted to P3. Daniel hasn't stopped yet. Or has stopped. Hasn't stopped. Daniel hasn't stopped yet. So he's gone 64 laps on one set of tyres. Azar's going to get a penalty for crossing the exit line, potentially. We believe. So that's made his day even worse. But yeah, if he hasn't changed his tyres, that could be the bigger problem there.
His tires look phenomenally well. And I would say his front tires look better than Sean's front tires by a lot.
Okay, so very smooth driving for Azar.
And maybe that's the reason why he is pace-wise so far off compared to his qualifying performance. So he not only took the challenge to finish the race with 100% of fuel, but also with one set of the odd R1 tires.
If you're a fan of propaganda, then Sean Lee has provided some. Looking back towards Jimmy Versonen. But yeah, this really is getting close now at the front between these two. I wonder what Jimmy's thinking. I wonder if he knows what the state of Sean's tyres is, and I wonder if he's compromising his own strategy to try and get ahead. Wow, this is the closest they've been now. Nose to tail. We saw Jimmy go for a move on Emra earlier in the race, where it was into the Hammerhead, which is the next corner coming up.
Oh,
Here
Sean's
comes the
covering.
slipstream. So we're going to see an on-track overtake for the lead. Sean defends the inside, goes later on the brakes and defends the place. Actual racing happening, ladies and gentlemen, in a fuel-saving race. This is bizarre. Sean does not want to give up that place. I wonder whether he's willing to compromise his own strategy to defend it. It seems like he is.
And don't forget that defending also takes life out of the tires.
Yeah, Jimmy was ahead at the timing line, so he's still registered as, and he's just gone over the second timing line, so he's now down to P2. But yeah, he was temporarily in the lead, and now we've got a race on our hands for P1. I wonder if he's going to try and get past in the same place. Sean's just decided to hit the gas and just disappeared. Jimmy hits the wall.
Jimmy Virgin. As Daniel Balla leaves
Balla
the
pits there, finally made his stop. He's still in P4 as well, which is good. Just ahead, I assume, of Azar, who may or may not get a drive-through penalty for crossing the pit exit line. We will see. I don't know. I think I saw another car earlier on cross the pit exit line without a penalty, so I'm not sure whether it's being as heavily scrutinised. So Sean well ahead
That's
before.
the steward's decision.
Yeah. Well
They
ahead
have all
before
the
the
angles.
Hammerhead.
So, looking at Emre Khan's tires, they are rather red.
Red. Okay.
So he must have some problems again with sliding around a lot. But he's now closing into Daniel Balla, who is currently on the cold tires.
If we ever host the E-Challenge again, I hope it's on this track. This track has thrown in so many interesting and different factors. It's completely unknown. It's an excellent replica, and it's proving very challenging. And the attrition rate in this race is becoming a big factor. So we've already lost 5 drivers from this race. To be fair, 2 of them for connection problems. As Emre Khan
in the
now
slipstream of
mounting
Daniel.
a charge. Yeah, he's actually... it's strange, isn't it? You see him on the power, exiting the corner, gaining, and then he puts his clutch in. And it's like, ah. But yeah, they are saving fuel. So Emre just biding his time, trying to make that position back on Daniel Balla. We've crossed over the 2/3 mark, and the obligatory, if you have just joined us, then where have you been? You're watching Master Race Cars E-Challenge live on Sim Broadcasts. We're inside Live for Speed on the Replica New York E-Prix track created by Master Race Car. This event sanctioned and stewarded by New Dimension Racing. And we're watching Emre Khan, the Turkish driver, who is about to, we think, mount a charge. Oh no, he's put his clutch in again. This is a fuel-saving race inspired by Formula E. These cars do not have enough fuel in them to finish the race at full chat, and that's why we're seeing all sorts of strategies to save fuel.
Drive-through penalty for Azar. So as our little bird told us in our ears, he turned out to be right, and Azar has to go through the pit line and pit lane speed limit.
Yeah, I've temporarily turned the cameras away from Emre in case he's a bit camera shy and doesn't want to send a move on Daniel Balla while he's being looked at. So let's leave him for a little bit to think about what he's going to do. He just needs to stop playing with his meat and get that move done. Meanwhile, up ahead, Sean and Jimmy, same story, nose to tail. So we've got two on-track battles right now, and they're both on screen. One behind the other. This is the battle between Sean Lee for the lead with... Oh, Jimmy, as Sean gets the second part of the chicane all wrong. Nearly hits the wall on the exit, but definitely clipped too much curb on the entry.
Oh, but Jimmy also hitting the wall there on the exit of the fast left-hander.
Daniel Balla going defensive in the background. But yeah, Emre just using the slipstream. I'm not sure he actually is trying to get past at this point. Unless he's trying to move around the outside, that would be a bit ambitious. No, slots in behind once again. So 2 battles for position on the track at the moment with only 9 cars left. That's, well, I'm rather thankful for that.
Azar completed his penalty, so he's back in the running order.
In P5 as well, not bad. Hasn't lost any more positions.
And he is just a couple of corners behind this group of Balla and Khan.
Is he not an extra lap down now, or is he still within
He's on the
fighting
same lap
distance?
as those two, but a lap down compared to the leaders.
Okay, so didn't lose too much time with his drive-through then.
This means also that the top 2 are only on the lead lap, and they are fighting for position on track. So
Sean Lee and Jimmy Vertinen come across the line in the quietest race I've ever heard in Live for Speed, with their clutches in, followed closely by Daniel Balla and Emre Khan.
But one thing I have to attest is that Sean kept his car clean, like...
For now, fingers crossed.
For now, yeah. Everyone... Oh, Jimmy Vertinen decides...
What a
to
send.
launch it.
Yeah, he'd had enough of following Sean around, decided to leave that braking later than Sean. And finally, we have a lead change that wasn't in the pits. Jimmy Vertinen, for a Master Race car, has made what might be the defining move of the race, as we believe Sean Lee does not have the tyres to go to the end without another pit stop. So an on-track overtake for the lead. Jimmy Vertinen now just needs to manage the pace, and Sean needs to try and not get frustrated because there's still a potential podium on the line for him. If you're a betting man, you'd probably say that the win is probably off the cards for Sean unless something catastrophic happens to Jimmy Vertinen.
Oh!
Return move for Sean, too
Yes.
wide, contact,
Oh, contact.
but Sean gets the lead back, so he's really not ready to give that position up, is he?
Yes, and this move actually caused Sean to gain the first pixel of damage in his damage meter.
Okay. He's also retaken the fastest lap at some point, and they're still battling down the back straight as we head up to the hammerhead for the second time in this battle. More contact at Sean. Oh, narrowly avoiding the wall. That could have been so nearly him into the wall.
Making a move from Daniel Bella.
Moves going on everywhere, and he's made the move. He's up to P3 then. Unless he was still a lap down, I'm not sure.
No, that was for position.
That is for position, yeah, okay.
So P3 for Emre Khan, a lap down behind the leaders, behind Sean Lee and Jimmy Virtanen. But now in third position on the podium.
As we cross over the timing line, that is confirmed, so there we are. Let's see what happens with Sean. He must think he's got enough fuel, and he must think he's got enough tyres if he's still battling with Jimmy. Unless he thinks Jimmy's having similar problems. I'm sure he's been in and out of the other driver's cockpit having a look at that.
Yeah, so from my view, Sean's tyres are looking worse than Jimmy's.
Yeah, Sean's electing to use a little bit more throttle on the back straight than he was previously, so he's just using a bit more fuel to try and stay ahead on track. He doesn't want to spend any more time battling with Jimmy. And Jimmy, well, he'll just be deciding what he wants to do about this. Does he want to risk going for another move? Because it does seem as though every single move that these guys are making does have quite a lot of risk involved. The track is so thin that at certain points you don't want to be side by side, especially not the apex to the hairpin. And yeah, it's been so close between these two through the hammerhead chicane. As we head onto the start-finish straight, when they come through the final corner, it looks like an actual flat-out race. But as soon as they arrive at the start-finish line, it becomes, well, back a Formula E race again, basically. This is teeing up for a brilliant finale. If Sean can make his tyres last until the end of this race, this is going to be a grandstand finish. Jimmy goes one way, goes the other way. Oh, and he's forced Sean deep. Oh, that's brutal. Sean probably just spooked by Jimmy darting around in his mirrors. And that's huge. There's a big gap now between Jimmy and Sean. Oh no. Is that the move of the race? Just Jimmy psyching Sean out. Nah, Sean's flat out. Sean's flat out. He's not lifting in the same places. What's he doing?
But his front left tyre is also now taking temperature.
Yeah, look, he's flat out. He wants that position back. He doesn't want to let him get away. So he's just using a bit more fuel at this stage of the race to try and gain back that time. Let's see what he does on the home straight. Can he afford to use all the fuel that he's got saved in the reserve? He normally lifts at the start-finish. Let's see if he does the same now. No, look at him. He's flat out, 150. So 50 metres extra. This is going to be different for him. He's not he's not driven this fast all race long. So he's opening himself up to potential errors, if I can get my words out, as we head onto the back straight once again.
But credits to Sean Lee, he's actually using this little runoff area into this very corner we are passing through.
Yeah, ran a bit deep on entry there. He's not used to taking these corners this fast. His approach is a lot quicker. He's braking 50 to 75 metres later every single time, and you can see the gap to Jimmy's coming down dramatically as who was that? That was Jabazi lets Sean through.
But his tyres are really not looking too great. So while I had my doubts he would make it in one pit stop, these doubts are now becoming more and more reality here, I think.
That's a shame. I mean, maybe Sean just wants to put on a show at this point. Yeah, that's another 50 metres late, and look, you can see how that translates into lap time. He's really caught up to the back. I'm sure he's probably set a fastest lap somewhere in this as well.
Not quite. He was 3/100th slower than the fastest lap of the race, but yeah, he is putting on quite some pace right now.
There's been another pit stop, Thilo.
Jabazi
Hazi
yeah.
is in the pits.
Changing all 4 tyres.
As you do. And with 25 laps left in the race, Sean Lee is mounting a retaliation on Jimmy Virtanen. As we hear from race control that all cars have made the compulsory pit stop now. So someone made it 76 laps. Remarkable.
Well, the thing is 76 laps hot lapping.
Well, 76 laps is what the leaders have done as well, actually. I think Jabahazi's done quite a considerable number less than that.
Yes.
Given that he's been lapped
indeed.
a few times. Has Sean... Yeah, Sean's now backed off the charge on Jimmy Virtanen. He's quite content being this close to him now. Yeah, I'm worried about his tyres. Doubting he can make it to the end, really, on those. But let's see.
Well, earlier in the second stint I was worried about his fronts, but his rears are now getting in a similar condition, I fear. But yeah, let's wait and see. I mean, the actual temperatures are only available to the drivers, and probably they can estimate better what tyre life they have still left. But I missed the days where Formula 1 had these thermal cameras that they were overlaying with the actual footage. That would be handy now to see what Sean's doing with his tyres.
I prefer it to some of the other gimmicks they use. I think the tyre heat overlay on the broadcast was really nice.
But it was also before Amazon actually joined Formula 1 for these gimmicks.
Sean's picked up engine damage. That engine is not running at 100% health anymore. It won't affect him too badly, it just affects his horsepower and his fuel usage. So
I think this kind of race is one of... Well, it's the only I can imagine where the actual engine damage is not affecting your performance too much.
no,
Obviously, you can't accelerate out of the corners that quickly, but if you are brave enough, you can use a little bit more fuel to compensate it.
yeah, definitely some misfiring going on, and Jimmy Virtanen is opening that gap up again. Sean is looking ragged at this point. His wrist must be really sore on that mouse. I'm not gonna. I would hate to be using a mouse for this race. Yeah, he's back on the old late clutch. So Jimmy must be responding as well. They're both still pushing quite hard. Unfortunately, with 22 laps to go, I don't see Sean making this without another stop. If he does, fair play to him, and he would have kept the battle alive to the end, but realistically, Thilo, it's not looking likely, is it?
Let's wait and see. Maybe we see a safety car or anything that could mix the race up again. Still 21 laps to go. As the leaders are just accelerating out of the harbour side into the DHL chicane. And back onto start-finish. To start the 80th lap of this race. Oh, Sean is really pushing it. He was not using the clutch at all at this stage.
Okay, maybe he's seen the back markers up ahead and wants to follow Jimmy through. It wouldn't be a bad technique. We've got most of the cars in the entire race together now for the first time since the start. 6 of the cars there in shot. And Sean thinking about going for the move. Oh, and Jimmy's hit the wall. Almost in kind of a reflection of what happened before, just a little bit earlier. But yeah, Sean is really wanting to get that position done. And he's gone for the... Nope, he thought about it. Into the left.
He tries to spook him.
Yeah.
Like he was spooked.
Yeah, he's weaving about in the background. Not happy. Tries to cut back at the hairpin.
Yeah,
They're
cut
side
back.
by side. 3 wide.
Oh, Jimmy hitting the wall on the exit there through the... Oh, DHL chicane.
Yeah, Sean in the wall as well. I love the two sides of this race. It's really intense.
20 laps
And
remaining.
and then the drivers put the clutch in. But no such clutching for Jimmy or Sean there. They really are fighting here. As race director Jonathan Palmer informs us that there are now 20 laps remaining in the E-Challenge. Jimmy sideways out of the... Oh! Almost collecting a back marker. Onto the back straight we go. Riding on the front left suspension wishbone of Sean Lee. He's always trying to bait Jimmy into a mistake. It almost works.
I don't want to jinx it, but I think Sean is about to get a puncture.
Oh, maybe this is it. Maybe he's just thinking, he's just going for it. This is not ideal. He needs to come down the pits and save an incident. That was close. Come on, Sean.
By the way, I was told Mandula is doing rather well right now, and indeed he is. A 1:12.76 his last lap. He is again at the diffuser of Emre Khan.
What's happened to Sean? He's dropped off a bit, but he's not gone into the pits. I do hope he doesn't get a puncture. That would be a big shame. It's a podium is very much still on the cards here for Sean. I hope he can hear us and thinks and takes the right decision.
I think he is not tuned in the stream right now, at least from the looks of it.
Okay, well hopefully the little bird on his shoulder's telling him that the right thing to do is to come on, get into the pits, change your tyres and push to the end. Yeah, just unfortunate. His fuel saving is clearly good, but just let down by his tyre management.
It looks so weird when he is actually going full throttle at Jimmy Vertonen with quite a few car lengths back, closing up into the braking zone, while Jimmy is still lift and coasting.
Let's see if he comes in this lap. He hits the wall and Sean does not come into the pits. Sean is going for this. He can't make those tyres last 18 laps. If he does, then, well, something else has gone on. He's not going for the move. He's just following. Oh, no, he's going for the move. Pretty late lunge, but he's done it. Sat under Gemini's rear wing for a little bit and then tucked out and has moved back into the top step. But for how long? Really, for how long? This battle doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm loving it.
Jimmy's again trying, and he's now... Oh, puncture front left!
Yeah, there we go. And this is a long drive back to the pit lane. He could have come into the pits and saved himself so much time. This is going to be a painful few corners for Sean now. He just needs to bring that car around as quickly as he can to the pit lane. He could have spared himself.
Bad.
Yeah, he could have spared himself this pain that's about to happen here. Oh.
And I still fear that his rear right is about to pop as well.
Okay, and he's got two cars behind him that would dearly love to stay out of trouble. Into the wall! Yikes, Emre Khan. Oh, this is difficult to watch. Ah, there's contact. Sean, get in the pits. There we go. So Emre and Daniel now right together. Let's watch these guys while Sean serves his pit stop. Sean's lost 6 or 7 seconds there to Jimmy Vertonen because of that. Maybe 5 or 6 seconds. Yeah. So Mandula, Daniel Ballot, potential podium on the cards for him if he can get past the man on screen, Emre Khan, who's doing everything he needs to do to hold on to it for now. But there we go, Sean
is
Lee.
leaving the pit lane right now, so keeping P2. And now Jimmy could theoretically do what Mercedes messed up in Sakir, doing a safety stop.
Yeah, he has
Although-
more than enough buffer to do a safety stop, but his tyres look absolutely perfect.
Yes. So I think he doesn't need to.
No, I mean, it seems unlikely. I mean, all Jimmy needs... If Sean really has used a lot more fuel in that kind of rampage that he did for the last 5 laps, then I wonder if Sean's going to struggle with fuel. I don't know. It would seem silly to sabotage his own fuel saving strategy for the battle for the lead. But it did seem like Sean wanted to get back in the lead and then have his tyres blow up. But it didn't quite pay
Mandela
off.
in the diffuser of Khan. So those two are still rather close.
Yeah, Daniel can use the slipstream of Emre Khan all day long. He doesn't have to make the move until the final lap if he doesn't want to, as long as he's got enough fuel. I really am fascinated to know how tight on fuel these guys are. Like, how much of a margin are they leaving themselves, sorry. If they have 16% fuel left in their tanks right now, that's enough to finish the race. It's very easy to work out when you've got 100 laps. So let's see. Emre Khan got a good exit out of that DHL chicane, and he's disappeared from sight from Daniel Balla. So a strong lap that from Emre.
Speaking earlier about the different techniques drivers are using, Daniel Balla is, like Jimmy Virtanen, using the short shifting and the not going full throttle method, while Emre Khan is more like Sean, engaging the clutch and coasting into the braking zone.
Yeah, really coasting around. As Emre hits the wall hard, that's a big hit.
Oh dear, oh dear.
A big hit for Emre Khan there, and yeah, you don't want to be doing that at this stage of the race. You've managed to get this far. Don't throw your race away by breaking a suspension arm. Very easily done.
Jabazi is getting a drive-through penalty for a blend line violation, so just like we have seen with the Master Race Car driver Azar earlier. Same goes for Nemeth.
Okay, so possibly from earlier, one that we picked up on potentially.
Yes.
Nemeth coming into the
there
pits.
are going to be a few more, I was told.
Okay, so Jabazi hasn't served his on this lap. Looks like we're going to see a bunch of cars coming down the pit lane for blend line violations.
Emre Khan.
Oh no! Really?
Oh dear.
That's a shame. So Emre Khan has picked up a blend line violation. You know, it's completely avoidable. It says in the rules you can't cross over the pit exit line for any reason. So if you cross the pit exit line, then you can't really complain, can you? Daniel Balla then will inherit the last step of the podium, at least temporarily.
For now.
For now, yeah. But yeah, the Turkish driver Emre Khan, he's going to be down the pit lane within the next 3 laps to serve, and he pulls into the pits now. Where will he come out? Will he come out anywhere near Azar, I wonder? Maybe not. Azar's quite a way back.
To be close.
Yeah, Azar entering the DHL chicane now. Can Azar pick up P4? I think he might be able to, actually. Or it's going to be close. Let's see. Let's ride on board.
Emre should be out of pit lane right about now. Oh!
Emre's
So
still in the
Azar
pits. Azar has made up the place as he streaks across our screen.
Corollas.
Oh yeah, and Motojutis. Amazing. Emre Carr's lost 2 places because of a pit lane violation. Pit lane line violation. That is unfortunate, but the rules are the rules, and the stewards have acted accordingly. Jimmy Vertonen leads on lap 88 of 100 ahead of Sean Lee, and now Daniel Balla for Race Green is on the podium, a lap down from the leaders. Azar has made his way up to P4, Carolus Motodutis P5, Emre Khan down to P6. Dennis Raveja in P7, Nemeth P8, and he seems to have stopped. He's out of fuel.
All drivers stand by for virtual safety car on short notice.
Virtual safety car is going to be called out.
Okay, here we go. So the cars will not be able to get closer to each other. They'll have to maintain a minimum.
Virtual safety car in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Virtual safety car is out. We have a car out of fuel in the last sector. A rescue car will be pushing him off the course.
Great to hear the voice of Jonathan Palmer in our ears.
You will be pushed into the brake on driver's left, just ahead of where you are. Once you are behind the wall, you may spectate. Wait till you are behind the wall to spectate.
Okay, so yeah, car 8 will be pushed off the circuit. Here comes the rescue car. Driven by Yaroslav Donlik, as he will now push the stranded car. That's gonna go. Oh no. Not quite enough lock on there for Nemeth. And he has no fuel, and he won't be able to reverse out of there. So we could be here a while. Jimmy Vertonen and the rest of the field will have to run around at a very, very cool 50 kilometers an hour. Now this is huge for fuel saving, isn't it, Thilo?
Indeed. Basically these laps will help Sean if he used too much fuel in fighting with Jimmy Vertonen. But also it helps Jimmy Vertonen by cruising around at 50 kilometers per hour.
Yeah, they're not allowed to gain on each other. They're limited to 50 Ks. Each of the drivers get a warning each time they get close to the limit, so they know if they're gaining or losing time. So because this event is sanctioned by New Dimension Racing, we have all sorts of features in the race, including virtual safety cars, rescue cars, safety cars, red flags, etc. So the race director at his discretion can throw any of those at any point. And we have our first action of the race, 88 laps in, caused by Nemeth rather drastically underestimating the amount of fuel saving that he needed to do, running out of fuel 13 laps before the end of the race. So unfortunately we lose.
All drivers stand by for green flag on short notice. Green flag, green flag.
So everybody can move up to racing speed again as the green flag is called by Jonathan Palmer, our race director. And yes, to finish my point, we've now lost our 6th driver of the race. Car 8, Nemeth, ran out of fuel, and he now leaves the race. 8 cars in this 11-lap dash to the finish. Jimmy Vertonen for Race Green leads Sean Lee. Then it's Daniel Balla in 3rd place now, ahead of Imran Azar, who seems to have been he's got a little bit of a gaggle there, because we've got Carolus Motodutis in there as well. Side by side they are, in fact. Looks like Emma's going for a move for position into the Hammerhead chicane. Thilo.
Oh, I thought Motodutis would say hello to Azar there. But that worked out for now. 3 cars within just a couple of meters, and they have now more fuel available to them than they would have had without the virtual safety car. To the outside now.
Right outside. It's just so tight there, and it's barely enough room to go 1 car around there.
How did they survive?
I don't know. I'm just glad they did, and that's let Azar move ahead. Well, there's a gap between these guys now.
10 laps remaining.
10 laps to go. This is a battle for position from 4th to 6th. Can you believe it?
Side by side into the braking zone, full throttle. No love lost. And Emre Khan to 5th position for now. Now he's chasing his teammate from Malaysia.
So they're confirmed on your timing screen. Emre Khan moves up to P5. Can he make up any more places? Can he get back to P5? Back to P4? We'll find out in due course. Jimmy Verstappen looks set to take a triumphant win here if he can keep it on the track for the next 9 laps. He rounds the final corner. Just behind him on track by maybe a sector and a half is Sean Lee. Half a lap potentially between those two. Sean having to go to the pit lane after getting a puncture on his second set of R1s. He's now on his 3rd set. Daniel Balla somehow has managed to get himself back onto the podium. Or onto the podium, should I say. Just driving his own race. But we have yet to find out whether any of the other drivers have messed up their fuel saving. We lost Nemeth, our 6th driver, to retire from the race due to a catastrophic miscalculation with the fuel saving. 13 laps short.
The only thing that is worrying now, looking at Jimmy Virtanen, due to the virtual safety cars, his tires are really cold right now, and since he raced quite a lot with Sean earlier, they are rather thin, so they are difficult to get back to temperature without putting too much load into those tires.
There's a battle on track once again for P4 between Imran Azar and Emre Khan. We're reaching the climax here at the end of the 100 lap E-Challenge. In what is easily the most bizarre race I've ever commentated. Thanks for joining us, thanks for being a part of it, thanks to Master Racecar for putting it on. It's been thoroughly enjoyable so far, and I'm sure we're in for a spectacle of a finish if it carries on the way it's been going for the last few laps. How many other drivers are going to run out of fuel before the line? How many more VSCs are we going to get? I wonder. Emre Khan on the brakes. Ooh, has to get out of it at the last minute. Has not to run into the back of Imran.
Bit of a smack into the wall by Emre Khan there. Ooh, smacking into the wall on the straight. Slipstream now, again for Emre. He is not fully on throttle and now throws in the clutch.
Oh, and hits the wall on the exit. He's bounced off the walls a lot today, but that car's still looking pretty good right now. Can he make up this final place that he needs? I mean, it's a shame. He was on for a good podium, but that blend line violation really has hurt him. He won't make that mistake again in future, I'm sure.
Well, Emre is one of the couple of mouse drivers here in this race, as Daniel Balla pulls the fastest lap of the race, the 1:12.58.
Look who is behind. Right behind our race leader.
He's behind.
Maybe trying to unlap himself potentially. But yeah, he's really gained on Jimmy Virtanen. I wonder if he wants to finish on the lead lap, if that's what this is. And why not?
Jimmy has some problems with his tires. They are...
Are they really that bad? Okay.
It's different to the problems that Sean Lee had. Sean's were thin and hot. Jimmy's are not that thin, but stone cold.
I mean, we have 6 laps to go. Will it have an effect? I mean, Sean Lee is quite a considerable distance behind. Jimmy really only has to nurse that car home, and he's got less than 7 minutes left in this race, theoretically. He doesn't have to do that much to preserve them. Yes, they're cold. He just has to... I mean, he can afford to lose 5 seconds a lap at this point.
I think he could even afford a pit stop. Although it is telling something, the gap is not...
Azar pits, and Emra moves up to P4. Sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure why Azar has pitted, but... oh no, has he?
Azar has not pitted.
No, he has not pitted, so he must have just moved out of the way for some reason. Anyway.
I was noticing it earlier that he has a rather strange line through the final corner by first going over the pit entry lines and then rejoining the track in a way. So I thought 2 or 3 times this race already that Azar was about to pit but decided not to.
Huh. Strange. Well, they're not allowed to refuel, and the only reason to pit... Yeah, that's why I was confused. How strange. So yeah, Jimmy Virtanen has eked out the gap again to Daniel Balla. Daniel Balla has given up on any idea of trying to get ahead. Azar's taken the fastest lap in the dying moments. I wonder if anyone's got enough fuel on board to beat that. Daniel had it briefly.
Looking to the inside of Azar for a split second.
Yeah, this is still for position. The battle from 4th to 6th is definitely still alive. Let's watch what Azar does into the final corner again. No, he's not dummying anyone down the pit lane this time. And yeah, this battle for 4th is the one to watch right now. Jimmy Virtanen looks like he has it all sealed up, as long as his tyres make it the distance and he's done his fuel strategy right. Sean Lee, likewise, plenty of tyres, but has he done enough to fuel save? Daniel Balla looks on for a solid podium finish. And then it's these guys, these three.
Moving into the inside of Imre Khan pulling out of it.
Yeah, lifting off quite dramatically and letting 2 cars through. What's gone on there?
Did he take a look at his fuel gauge and suddenly realize, oh my god, this is not going to work out?
Yeah, where's David Godge when you need him? Oh my god. Where is... What has happened to Emre Khan? He let 2 cars pass. Maybe it's just Montejutis just fancy to go. Maybe he just fancy to go.
Contact between Montejutis and Azar. They are getting racy while we are on the anti-penultimate lap for the leader. To quote Jonathan Palmer here.
Elmo in our ears is commenting on Khan and Azar's tyres, Thilo.
Yeah.
Azar up to P4, and after Emra let them past on that lap, this battle is very much still alive. Montejutis really fancies that P4.
Well, I would say as well, if he was in his position.
Oh! Okay, that was just lag. Ignore me. Emra's gone for a send. Oh, big crash! Yikes!
Roadblock.
Yeah, roadblock. This is the battle for 4th that's happened.
Getting 4th position, Azar in 5th.
Yeah, Emra just... I'm not sure what he was thinking there. Anyway, he's down to the back of this group, and with 2 laps to go, we have a drama with a capital D. As the 3 cars that are battling for position end up basically facing the wrong way.
Is very slow.
Okay, Daniel's
16s
closing up to him again, yeah. He's on the penultimate lap now.
Azar and slipstream of Montejutis, and they are racing.
Okay, they must realise they've got enough fuel left, and we're just going to have a race to the end with these guys. This is great. As long as they don't cause any more damage to each other. Emra, don't do any big sends into the Hammerhead chicane. You can't afford any more penalties. Let's see this on board from Emra Khan, who's almost certainly likely to be the one who's going for the big send. The two cars ahead of him side by side. Emra still flat out, lifts at the 200, and MotoGP stays ahead for now. Runs a bit deep, but he's okay. Here they come then into the final sector, or sector 3 of the lap.
Also very slow.
Yeah, Jimmy's going.
I have a feeling that the top two are now very.
What's happened to Jimmy? What's happened to Jimmy? He's going super slowly.
Final lap.
He's on the final lap, but I don't know whether he was thinking of letting Daniel through and just moved over. Oh, super slidey into turn 1. Possibly the wrong gear, but he's on the final lap. What's happening with MotoGP? MotoGP, Azar and Emre Khan still battling hard. Yikes, they're leaving it late to make this move, aren't they? As there's a back marker moving out the way. Oof, that's not going to help Emre.
Oh, Azar hitting the inside retaining wall. And this opens the door now for Emre Khan accelerating out of this corner. This is the final lap. Don't forget.
Yeah. Emre's backed off. They are still fuel saving, even on the final lap. No one's left themselves any fuel to battle with at the line. This is great. As Gemini gets very sideways again. I don't know whether he's just showing off here, but
I think at this point he's showing off because
showboating.
Are the last couple of 100 meters.
Yeah, he's. I hope he doesn't drop it into the wall. Yeah.
Very thin and very cold. But here he comes, round the final corner, turn 14, all the way.
Oh, he's crashed! He's crashed! Daniel doesn't want to overtake him.
Went wrong, but still, he finishes. First position goes to Jimmy Virtanen.
I'll be amazed.
Sean Lee is without engine noise around the final couple of corners. No, well, he's on the approach to the hairpin. Good thing though that MotoGP's Bala, Khan, Azar already finished.
Yeah, those guys already finished. We're just basically waiting for Sean Lee to see if he can actually make it to the finish.
Azar without fuel, so he just finished the race.
Okay. Waiting then for...
Yeah, and Sean is only giving quick bursts of throttle, and now he's out of fuel.
Okay. There we go. Across the line.
Across the line.
So that's Sean Lee, Daniel Bala, MotoGP's Emre Khan and Azar confirmed as the top 6, but where are the others? What are they doing? Jabazi's going incredibly slowly.
Vivenga is the last car on the track. He is coming around the final DHL chicane of this evening. And around the final corner, I think he's also out of fuel. Just managing it.
Here he comes.
Across the line.
We're still waiting for one person, are we not? Oh no, no, that is it. We lost. Yeah, we lost Nemeth earlier. Yeah,
have finished now.
Excellent.
What a race! 2 hours, 8 minutes, 36.87 seconds. So the E not only stands for economy, it also stands for endurance, as we said in this race. So Jimmy Virtanen wins the inaugural Master Race Car E-Challenge from the Brooklyn Street circuit of the New York E-Prix, recreated by Master Race Car in Live for Speed. He is followed by Sean Lee in second position, who, they too put on a show in the middle parts of this race, and too bad Sean had the puncture and had issues with the tire management. One lap down in third position, Daniel Bala for Race Green Autosports, who got handed this third place by by taking advantage of the problems of everyone else around him. Yet again, he had this turn 2 incident on lap 1, so he was having his own troubles earlier in the race. P4, Carolus Montejutis for Last Lap Motorsports. 5th position, Emre Khan ahead of Azar. So Azar ran out of fuel so that his teammate could pass him before the line. Then Daniel Revenga in 7th position. 8th goes to Jabazi. 9th, not finished, 20 laps down. Nemeth, who ran out of fuel quite early. Biolas having issues with his internet in 10th position. 11th position, Nico Puntola. So even his alter ego could not finish this race. Simas Tautkevicius was the second car we lost today after retiring from accidents. And Jeff and Jacob also succumbed to his internet.
Yeah, a really great race. Thank you, Thilo, for running down the order. That was quite something, and yeah, a very successful inaugural E-Challenge by Master Race Car, I have to say.
I mean, you can look at it, see the number of entrants and say, okay, but they provided lots of good racing, and it was very interesting to watch. It was something very different, as we see Jimmy Virtanen and Sean Lee on start finish, and now Daniel Baller in the middle of it.
Yeah, I think Daniel hasn't got any fuel, so the rescue car pushed him into position. Jimmy was out of position, so Daniel Baller takes the top step of the podium by accident. So there you have it. There's the podium in the wrong order, but it doesn't matter. They've got no fuel. You can forgive them, I think.
Yes, indeed.
From left to right, Jimmy Virtanen, Daniel Baller, and Sean Lee.
Let's see if some of the drivers are actually open to get interviewed here. I can imagine Sean Lee's having quite some stories to tell, so do Jimmy Virtanen and the others. But yeah, what a race. What a different experience from what we're used to. And still it was fascinating. Fastest lap, by the way, goes to Azar with a 1:12.45. So even though he was fuel saving, the lap is about 1.5 seconds only slower than the qualifying time of Sean Lee. As we are joined here in the commentary booth by Michael Malek. Hello, Phil.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Nice.
So what was it like to see all those competitors on the track you created here?
Well, to be honest, at first I was concerned a little bit, maybe very concerned, because we had quite a few cars, and after the start they start spreading a lot. So it was very... I was a little scared, but then the concept that's used in the Formula E, the energy or fuel saving, kicked in, and it proved some incredible racing, and it was great to see that you can have just 2 cars and make incredible race, and also for the fight for the 3rd, 4th and 5th place was amazing. I admire everyone who managed to finish this, I would say, very challenging race, and yeah, I hope they enjoyed this as well as I did.
And I hope they enjoyed it as much as we did as well here.
Yeah, it was incredible, especially the fight for the lead between Jimmy Vertanen and Sin Lee. I don't know. I think I will definitely want to rerun this race with some minor changes again next year. So hopefully we will see again some great racing.
Brilliant. Well, great to hear that you enjoyed it so much. You want to run it again. Yeah. Well, we said during commentary that I think everybody kind of will. As soon as everyone crosses the line, they'll kind of want to do this again and maybe rethink their strategy. A lot of different people using a lot of different strategies. In the end, Sean's didn't pay off because of his tyres, but yeah, did the event live up to your expectations? And I'm guessing it did if you want to run it again. But yeah, maybe explain to us kind of how you thought it was maybe going to go and what particularly you enjoyed about your event today.
Well, first of all, I was really hoping that we will have slightly more cars than what we did, because only 4 took the start of the race, and how many? 8 did finish. So that's quite a low number, considering the usual numbers in LFS. Still, there were some good fights, so I think this proves that the concept is really working. And yeah, I think I see people don't like this track very much because it's very narrow and twisty, but I don't know how we should handle this for the next edition of E-Challenge. Can you help me?
I'm sure in the debrief we can. But yeah, I personally, I think I said during commentary too, though, that if we were to run it again, I'd run it again on this because it is so different and challenging. It throws a unique challenge, definitely. But you know, I guess you're open to suggestions, and maybe the drivers will have some better suggestions for you. But from where I'm sat, I certainly enjoyed watching it at this track.
Yeah, same here. It was new playground for everyone, so there's a lot of to tries. It works on some, worked for some, and for some didn't. But I think, yeah, in the next edition, I think it will be much closer than this.
Yes, but even looking at the results here after 2 hours and about 10 minutes, the top 6 are still within a lap of each other. I mean, seeing Daniel, Carolus, Emre, they all had their issues during the race, their penalties, their setbacks. So if their races went smoother, they also would have been on the lead lap and maybe would have been able to throw a curveball at the 2 dominating drivers today.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I was very surprised we didn't have any safety car here, which would of course bunch the field up. So that would also change the strategies, especially for the drivers that haven't pitted at the time, but that didn't happen this time. So yeah, we will see next time again.
We so nearly got a safety car in that first lap incident. Luckily, no one flipped or rolled. That would have been the end of their race, and it was already a relatively small field. I don't think that the small field took anything away from the event. I think that the drivers that turned up, and especially the drivers who finished and made it to the end, deserve a pat on the back, certainly, because they put on a show. And yeah, congrats to the 8 drivers who finished, especially. No easy feat, especially with everything you have to think about. Yeah, we look forward to maybe a part 2 in 2021. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So, Thilo, should we wrap things up today? I mean, yeah, it's been a long one, but it's been enjoyable.
Yeah, it is a long one, and it looks like the drivers are exhausted as well, so they don't seem too chatty.
I don't blame them necessarily.
It was a really great event to commentate on, to watch this racing unfold, and one thing that may be strange, but once you are on the server and look at it, I think this narrow, twisty layout actually helped this kind of racing in a way, because it was demanding to the drivers to not only think about this lap, this fuel conservation, but also if you do a move, where you do a move, etc. So all in all, I think this race really delivered, and I'm glad so many of you were watching here. But I guess there's much more to watch here in the next couple of days, isn't there, Pete?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, before we go into that, I want to echo that and say well done to Michael and well done to MRC for trying out a risky event. It was definitely outside the box, thinking outside the box to imitate Formula E. A successful first go at it, I definitely have to say, and yeah, a real privilege to commentate and be part of it because yeah, it was a great idea, and I hope we get to see it again. So thank you, everybody. Right, what have we got coming up on Sim Broadcasts over the next couple of weeks? Well, tomorrow, don't go anywhere, because we have the second round of the MRC BF1 League, the second part, or I suppose it will be the third part of MRC's Formula Weekend. This evening there is FPM Saturday, which might explain why everyone's disappeared to go and compete in that. But yeah, tomorrow on Sim Broadcast from 2:15 UTC, we're at Kyoto Ring GP Long for round 2 of the BF1 League. That will be brought to you by Travis Mellinger and Adam Brown. Round 1 was a storming success. We hope round 2 is also. Then next weekend, it's the big one. It's the end of year endurance for New Dimension Racing. They're 6 hours of Aston North, part of the TBO Challenge on Sunday the 20th of December from 2:30 UTC. The post-season endurance. You can sign up for that on the Live for Speed forum, and you don't need to have competed in the main championship. You can sign up on your own and do a solo entry, or you can compete as part of a team. We'd love to see you for that. It's going to be awesome. Sign up a car, please, and we'll see you on the grid next Sunday from 2:30. Back to you, Thilo.
Yes, and final words of the evening. We saw a really great event made possible by Master Race Car, who developed this layout, who set the first couple of stones into it. It is also made possible by New Dimension Racing for the live race sanctioning, and we had Jonathan Palmer as race director, Tim de Knudder as board, but
he didn't get to come out on the track, did he?
No.
Our safety car driver.
After everyone finished, though, so
I'm glad he managed to get out on the track. Yeah.
Yeah, at least some fuel burned for the for the safety car. The rescue cars today were Chris McElroy and Jaroslav Danalik, head steward Jonathan Provost, and he was supported by Jaroslav Danalik, Darius Vetsinskas, and Nico Bilicic. Yes, and we here in the booth. I'm Thilo Falkenberg, and was joined by Pete Butcher. We wish you all now a nice evening, nice Saturday evening. Maybe you join the rest of the gang at FBM Saturday. But other than that, we probably see you tomorrow around here on some broadcasts. Good night, everyone.
Good night.